Part 26. Martial Arts, Become Invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 251. It turns out your name is Huaying, which is a good name. Huaying smiled slightly. It is Huaying's honor to receive a compliment from a distinguished guest. After saying that, Huaying continued to pour wine and dishes for the golden-faced Lion King. After a while, there were hurried footsteps outside the door, and then Tiansuxing pushed the door open and entered. I didn't know that the Lion King was coming, but the Sky Speed Star was far away to welcome him. I hope the Lion King will forgive me. Tiansuxing bent down and clasped his fists, bowed and saluted. His attitude was much more respectful than before. The golden-faced Lion King glanced at Tiansuxing and said calmly, "Get up." "Thanks, Lion King." Tiansuxing stood up and made some gestures with his eyes. The dancers, piano players, musicians, and Huaying in the private room all left the room. The golden-faced Lion King glanced at Tiansuxing and said coldly, "Last time you told me, the blood demon will come to see me soon. Please wait patiently." "But I have been waiting for so long and still haven't received any news." Tiansuxing broke out in cold sweat on his forehead, lowered his head and saluted the Lion King. "Atones for his sins, Master. He can't come to see me, right?" The golden-faced Lion King looked at the Sky Speed Star mockingly and said indifferently, "After all, the blood demon is already a dead person. Of course, a dead person cannot come to see me. Unless the blood demon comes back from the dead." Tiansuxing looked horrified and said in surprise, "How did the Lion King know? The death of the blood demon is a top secret. Only a few people know about it, and the news has not spread yet. Many warriors in Jieyang Mansion only know that the blood demon is behind the murder, but they do not know that the blood demon is dead. But the golden-faced Lion King knows." This made Tiansuxing secretly frightened. The golden-faced Lion King raised his glass to drink, drank it all, and said calmly, "I have been in the world for decades, so I naturally have my own channels. You said last time that the blood demon's power was about to break through. I thought there would be another peerless master at the semi-celestial level in this world. Unexpectedly, the blood demon died so quickly, and everyone was gone in the blink of an eye. This is a bit ridiculous." After saying that, the golden-faced Lion King picked up a glass of wine again, raised his head and drank it. Tiansuxing knew that the golden-faced Lion King was mocking the blood demon Yuquan, and even the demon sect. He was extremely angry, but he did not dare to show it. The strength of the golden-faced Lion King ranks 17th on the heavenly ranking, which is comparable to that of the blood demon before the breakthrough. It is not something that a small Tiangang grandmaster like him can say. The Lion King calmed down. "I didn't expect this to happen." Tiansuxing cupped his hands and explained, "It's really the master who..." Before Tiansuxing could finish his words, he saw the golden-faced Lion King raising his hand to interrupt him. "I said last time that if you don't see anyone again next time, I will kill you. You probably haven't forgotten, right?" Tiansuxing was shocked and said quickly, "Your Excellency, Lion King, I..." Boom! Just as Tiansuxing was about to speak, he was sucked into the palm of the golden-faced Lion King, and his neck was tightly grasped by the golden-faced Lion King. Those thick fingers were like steel. No matter how hard Tiansuxing struggled, he could not escape. The golden-faced Lion King can crush it to death with just a slight force. Tiansuxing was extremely frightened. His face turned red and he said hoarsely, "Lion King, calm down. Lion King, calm down. My holy religion, already knew, Dharma protector, arrive. He, willing, come and see, Lion King. Beg, Lion King, Rao villain, one life." The golden-faced Lion King stared. "New protector, who is he?" Tiansuxing said yes. "Wind demon, grown-ups. Time and location: 7 days later, Jinling, outside the city, flowing wine, pavilion." The golden-faced Lion King let go of his palm, and Tian Suxing fell to the ground with a thud. He covered his neck and gasped for breath. You can see that Tian Suxing's eyes were wide open, his eyes were horrified, and there was still panic and fear on his face. Tian Suxing knew. The golden-faced Lion King really wanted to kill him just now. He was like walking in front of the palace of hell. If the golden-faced Lion King used any more force, his life would be gone. Thank you, Lion King, for showing mercy. Tian Suxing got up from the ground, bent down, bowed his head in salute, and did not dare to raise his head. The golden-faced Lion King said calmly, "This is the last time. If you let me down again in 7 days, your life will really be gone. Huh. The window of the private room opened automatically, the breeze blew through, and the golden-faced Lion King disappeared into the private room. Tian Suxing did not dare to raise his head for a long time. Although he knew that the golden-faced Lion King was gone, he still did not dare to move. After a long time, Tian Suxing sat down on the ground, breathing heavily, his forehead and back already soaked with cold sweat. Terrible. The strength of the golden-faced Lion King is stronger than what he shows. Maybe even the master is no match for him. Tian Suxing was extremely frightened. On the other side, the golden-faced Lion King Kong Kong appeared on a high tower in Jinling City. Under the bright moon, the golden-faced Lion King stood with his hands behind his back, and relevant information about the demon sect Feng Mo automatically appeared in his mind. Feng Mo, his real name is unknown, his age is unknown, his gender is unknown, and people in the world call him Shan Yi. Feng Mo is one of the 3 demons, and his status in the demon sect is equal to that of the blood demon Yuquan. His strength is the weakest among the 3 demons. Only ranked 29th on the heavenly ranking. But his Qinggong is the strongest among the 3 demons. It is recognized by the world that Feng Mo's Qinggong is unparalleled in the world. Under the Master of the Unity of Heaven and Man, Feng Mo's Qinggong is undisputed number 1 in the world, invincible in the world. Even a half-step celestial master cannot catch up with Feng Mo. Before his breakthrough, Xiao Wuji combined the 2 light skills of the lightning god walk and the wind god kick, and his speed may not be as fast as Feng Mo. Relying on the absolutely invincible Qinggong, Feng Mo can be invincible against any master. Because in the blink of an eye, Feng Mo disappears, and you can't catch up. Feng Mo's world-famous martial arts is only Qinggong, other martial arts are all mysteries, and outsiders don't know anything about them. The blood demon is dead. The one who wants to take over the entrance of the Jinling Demon Church is Feng Mo Shenyi. First the Ghost Emperor, then the blood demon, and now the wind. I want to see how many protectors you have in your demon section. Let this Jinling city become the burial place of the devil's guardians. Under the moonlit night, Xiao Wuji's eyes were cold and his mouth was sneering, exuding a trace of bloodthirsty ferocity. Huh! The breeze blew by, and Xiao Wuji's figure instantly turned into smoke and dust, dissipating into nothingness. There was no words for a night, and in the blink of an eye he came. The next day. In the early morning, in the cold winter, the temperature was extremely low, and the dripping water turned into ice. There was a vast expanse of white everywhere, and the breath turned into frost. An old man delivering firewood and his son pulled 2 carts of firewood to the back door of Li's house. He knocked on the wooden door and waited for a while, but no one responded. The old man had been delivering firewood to the Li mansion for many years. Usually, as long as he knocked on the door, the back door would open, and the servants of the Li mansion would come to take care of him. The firewood was moved in. But today he waited for a long time, and no one responded inside. The old man and his son were very anxious, but they did not dare to push the door. You know, this is the Li mansion. Even if it is just the back door, it is not for ordinary people like them. Able to break in. If you accidentally anger someone in the Li family, even a servant can beat them to death. Dad, how about we go back? The Li mansion may not need firewood today. The son couldn't bear the cold wind and shivered all over, and he said tremblingly. Every winter, ordinary people have the hardest time. I don't know how many people will freeze to death and starve to death. The father and son only wore two clothes. It was a piece of patched linen clothes. When the wind blew, the cold wind blew into the inside of the clothes through the gaps, like a knife cutting. In just a moment, the lips of the father and son were already blue and purple from the cold. No, if the people in the Li mansion come out and find that they can't receive firewood, what will happen if someone changes in the future? The old man shook his head and continued to wait in the cold wind. There are many families like them who sell firewood for a living. Once they lose the big customer of Li mansion, their whole family will have to drink from the northwest wind. Hula! The cold wind howls. The wind became stronger. With a bang, the back door of Li's mansion was blown open by the strong wind. The father and son were stunned for a moment, then raised their eyes to look inside Li's mansion. At this sight, their eyes widened instantly, and they were frightened to death. They felt the soul flies to the sky. Die, dead people. The father and son were so frightened that they sat on the ground, stammering and incoherent. Looking through their eyes, they saw corpses lying on the ground in Li's house. The blood flowed on the ground and gathered together to form a small puddles. The blood had long been frozen, like red patches. Both father and son were ordinary people. Where had they seen so many dead people? They were so frightened that they rolled over and ran away. Dead people! Dead people! The father and son were running and shouting, like two madmen. In the early morning, there were not many pedestrians on the road, but there were always people. Passers-by saw these two madmen going crazy outside early in the morning and secretly cursed for bad luck. But some people also noticed the father and son. 300 The two of them ran out of the back door of Li's house. They were brave and curious. The heavy man stepped forward to check and suddenly let out a scream. Then there were a few more lunatics on the street. Finally, the news of a murder case in Li mansion spread completely. The Jingzhou mansion yamen quickly arrived with police officers, and Fu Yin personally led the team. The scene of the crime was Li Wenbo's mansion, so of course he, the governor, had to come in person. When they rushed into Li's mansion, all they saw was a hell on earth. As far as the eye can see, there are corpses everywhere. The magnificent Li mansion has been dyed red with blood, and broken limbs are scattered everywhere, making people shudder. Many veteran detectives who have been handling cases for decades have never seen such a tragic crime scene, and their legs became weak with fear. Many young detectives even ran to the side and vomited crazily, as if they wanted to vomit out their heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. It's over now. Oh my God, who did I provoke? How could this happen? The governor of Jingzhou mansion looked at the tragic situation of Li mansion with dull eyes. His legs went weak and he sat slumped on the ground. He wanted to cry without tears, and his heart was cold. In the imperial city of Jinling, at the feet of the emperor, such a heinous crime happened. The dignified residence of the chief minister was actually wiped out. How can he explain this to the emperor? As the governor of Jingzhou mansion, he has done his best. It may be difficult to atone for his sins if he is dismissed from office, and he may even be killed. Mr. Fu Yin, what should we do now? A head catcher walked up to Fu Yin and asked with a pale face. What to do? What to do? How do I know what to do? The governor of Jingzhou mansion roared, spitting on the face of the policeman. Why don't you go and find out if there are any survivors? Yes, my subordinates will go right away, go right away. The policeman nodded hurriedly and led many policemen to search around to see if there were any survivors. The governor of Jingzhou mansion also sent people to notify the Ministry of Punishment, Dali Temple, Jinyue, and Liamen. The chief minister's mansion was washed with blood, Like this, it is obvious that this shocking case cannot be solved by his small Jingzhou mansion. Anyone who has the courage to commit such a shocking murder must be a bold person, a martial artist and a murderer. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 252. Anyone who has the courage to commit such a shocking murder must be a brave person, a martial artist and a murderer. Only Jin Yue or Li Aman can catch the murderer. The Jingzhou mansion detectives searched the Li mansion from top to bottom, and found not a single living person except corpses. As the detectives came back one after another to report, the governor of Jingzhou mansion felt his heart freeze. At this moment, the cold wind of the 12th lunar month was not as cold as his heart. The governor of Jingzhou mansion felt that the blood in his body was about to freeze and his brain was about to freeze. He slapped himself hard twice. If it is a dream, let him wake up quickly. His little heart couldn't bear such a nightmare. It's a pity that the pain made the governor of Jingzhou mansion understand that this is reality, not a dream. People from Dali Temple, Jinyue, and Li Aman rushed to Li mansion quickly after receiving the news. When they saw the crime scene, their expressions were exactly the same as those of the Jingzhou mansion Yamen police officers. There was only one thought in everyone's mind: the sky was falling. The residence of the chief minister was wiped out and blood-bathed. Since the founding of the Zhou dynasty, there has never been such a shocking murder. When the remnants of the previous dynasty assassinated the Xia family, they never caused such a horrific tragedy. This is no longer contempt for the laws of the great Zhou dynasty, this is trampling on the laws of the great Zhou dynasty. The murderer didn't take the Zhou court and the emperor seriously at all. The news was reported quickly and reached the ears of Jinyue commander Xia Yongxuan. What did you say? Say it again. In the palace where Xia Yongxuan lives, Xia Yongxuan suddenly stood up from his chair, his face changed wildly. Yuan Xiong looked solemn and said word by word, last night, the Li mansion was blood-bathed, the whole family was wiped out, and no one in the Li family was left alive. All died. Xia Yongxuan sat back on the chair, picked up the teacup and took a sip to calm the ups and downs in his heart. Even he couldn't help but feel confused and unbelievable when he heard the news. Did the murderer leave any clues? Xia Yongxuan asked. No, the place is very clean. Yuan Xiong shook his head and said all the more than 1,500 people in the Li family were killed by sharp blades, but I personally checked the wounds and could not find any weapons that fit the wounds. Based on my experience, I judged that he was killed by sword energy, and the wounds of all the deceased were almost the same. I can be sure that there was only one murderer. Xia Yongxuan frowned. One person destroyed the entire Li clan. There is only one person who has such strength and has a deep hatred against the Li clan. Xia Yongxuan and Yuan Xiong looked at each other, and they said a name in unison: Golden-Faced Lion King. Only the Golden-Faced Lion King has such a motive for killing, and only he has such an ability. And based on the murder scene you described, I can confirm that the Golden-Masked Lion King must have improved in strength. Yuan Xiong nodded slightly. He understood what Xia Yongxuan meant. With the strength of the Golden-Faced Lion King, it is not difficult to kill more than 1,500 people in the Li family. After all, there are no great masters in the Li family now, and those people have no influence on the Golden-Faced Lion King. The Lion King is just an ant. The difficulty is that the whole killing process does not make any movement. You must know that there are more than 1,500 people, not more than 1,500 pigs. They will not stand still and let you kill them. Even so, there are more than 1,500 pigs, and the pigs will scream when they are killed. The Golden-Faced Lion King cannot reveal any movement during the killing process, which shows the strength of the Golden-Faced Lion King. This Golden-Faced Lion King is really brave. Xia Yongxuan secretly felt this in his heart. Although he also wanted to destroy the entire Li family, he only dared to think about it and never dared to take action. I will immediately go and tell your majesty that you go find Li Wenbo and take him to the Deluo Hall. Xia. Yongxuan looked at Yuan Xiong and said. Yuan Xiong gloated and smiled, I'm looking forward to Li Wenbo's reaction when he learned that his entire clan was wiped out. His face must be very exciting. Xia Yongxuan couldn't help but laugh. Li Wenbo brought disaster to the country and the people, and everyone in the Li clan should die. Xia Yongxuan and Yuan Xiong had long wanted to eradicate this cancer, but they never had the chance. Now the joy fell from the sky, the surprise came unexpectedly, and both of them were a little gloating. Although the ruthless massacre of the golden-faced Lion King slapped the emperor hard and trampled on the majesty of the great Zhou dynasty, the two of them were a little angry. But anger is anger, and gloating is gloating. There is no conflict between the two. Afterwards, Xia Yongxuan went to Dazhuluo Dian met Emperor Jingtai, and Yuan Xiong went to the Forbidden Army barracks to find Li Wenbo. Outside Li Wenbo's barracks, Yuan Xiong stood at the door with several soldiers. Li Wenbo hasn't gotten up yet? Yuan Xiong asked with a slight frown. The soldier behind him clasped his fists and said, Sir, no. Lord Chief Assistant has been in low spirits recently, so he wakes up late every day. Yuan Xiong said, Go and knock on the door. Obey. The soldiers obeyed the order and knocked on the door. However, after knocking for a long time, no one responded. Yuan Xiong had an ominous premonition in his heart, and immediately ordered the soldiers to forcefully break the door. The soldiers broke in, and when he saw the situation inside the house, he was frightened. He let out an exclamation and sat down on the ground. He pointed his finger at the room, trembling with fear, his lips were trembling, and his pupils had begun to dilate in fear. Yuan Xiong secretly thought that something was wrong, so he flew forward, broke into the room, and saw at a glance we arrived at Li Wenbo, who was dead on the bed. The blood had dyed the bed red and flowed all over the floor. Yuan Xiong stepped forward to check Li Wenbo's body with a solemn expression. The cause of Li Wenbo's death was very simple. The center of his head and eyebrows were penetrated by the true essence, and he died in an instant. The murderer acted quickly and was very powerful. He could compete with the golden-faced Lion King that Yuan Xiong had guessed. At this moment, Yuan Xiong felt very complicated. Logically speaking, he should be happy that Li Wenbo, the rebellious minister and traitor, was dead. But for some reason, he suddenly felt a little melancholy. The traitor Jin Yiwei wanted to eradicate died silently. It's like you want to kill someone for revenge, but the enemy is suddenly killed by someone else. Jin Yiwei was robbed and had no sense of existence. Moreover, Li Wenbo died in the palace, which is a big deal. Yuan Xiong can already imagine how difficult it will be for Emperor Jingtai to learn about this. Angry. Collect the body of Li Xiaofu, and I will report to His Majesty the Emperor. Yuan Xiong said coldly, turned around and strode away. A few pale-faced soldiers collected the body for Li Wenbo. They had done it many times before. But collecting the body for Li Wenbo was something they had never done before. I didn't even dare to think about it. Several soldiers seemed to be living in a dream. They looked at the corpse on the bed with dull eyes. They really couldn't believe that this was the most powerful chief minister in the world. Palace, Deluo Hall. Emperor Jingtai was there. After learning that the entire Li family was wiped out, he became furious. Damn it! Damn it! How audacious! In the imperial city of Jinling, at the feet of the emperor, the golden-faced Lion King dared to bloodbath the entire Li family. What did he want to do? Want to rebel? You don't take the imperial court seriously at all, and you don't take me seriously at all. A mere martial artist actually provoked the laws of the Zhou dynasty and trampled on the dignity of the law. This is really unbearable. Emperor Jingtai's eyes were red and his face was ferocious, like a mad lion. The roaring roar echoed around the Deluo Hall, and he rushed out of the hall, making the soldiers and maids outside the hall tremble. The golden-faced Lion King not only killed the entire Li family is still slapping him in the face of the emperor. Of course Emperor Jingtai will not tolerate it. If you don't kill such a daring demon, the people will not be angry, and if you don't kill him, it won't strengthen the monarch. Xia Yongxuan, what do you Jinyue people do for food? Emperor Jingtai glared at Xia Yongxuan, roared and cursed, you actually let the golden-faced Lion King slaughter the entire Li family under my nose. How can you trust me that the Jinyue can protect Jinling City? It's a humble minister who has neglected his duty. Please forgive me for your majesty's punishment. Please don't let your anger break the dragon's body. Xia Yongxuan bent down and bowed his head to apologize. But he was already complaining madly in his heart. Damn it, what does this have to do with my Jinyue? After the curfew, patrolling the streets to protect the people is the responsibility of the Four Elephants Corps. My Jinyue is in charge of the inspection department. I don't care if the whole Li family dies or not, okay. I don't care if the whole Li family dies or not. Is it possible that Jinyue will arrange special people to protect those moths? I wish they would die soon. Xia Yongxuan rolled his eyes wildly, he was slandering endlessly, but he didn't dare to break out. Emperor Jingtai was currently very angry, and just wanted to find someone to vent his anger. It happened that he was the only minister in Deluo Palace at the moment. If not him, who else could he find? It's your fault that Xia Yongxuan was so unlucky that he hit the muzzle of the gun. Seeing Xia Yongxuan taking the initiative to plead guilty, Emperor Jingtai's anger dissipated a little. Of course he knew that Xia Yongxuan and Jinyue could not be blamed for this. The only blame was that the golden-faced Lion King was too audacious. Where is Li Wenbo? Where is he? Why haven't you come yet? Emperor Jingtai was upset. He put his hands on his hips and looked left and right. The eunuch's servant said, Your Excellency, the first assistant, has been weak recently. He is too frightened and worried to sleep peacefully. He should not be up yet. Emperor Jingtai banged the table and shouted, His whole family has been blood-bathed, all his sons and daughters are dead, and his grandchildren are gone. How can he still be in the mood to sleep? Get someone to bring him over immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, the soldiers' voices suddenly rang out from the hall. Please inform your majesty that Yuan Xiong, a member of the Qinhu family of Jinyi guards, is seeking to see you. Xia Yongxuan said, I ordered Yuan Xiong to invite Li Shaofu. They must have already arrived. Emperor Jingtai said, let them come in quickly. The palace door opened, and Yuan Xiong walked slowly into the Deluo Palace. Hao Niuzhao. Xia Yongxuan immediately asked, Why are you alone, where is Li Shaofu? Yuan Xiong glanced at Emperor Jingtai and said cautiously, Your Majesty, I went to Li Shaofu's residence and found that Li Shaofu had been killed. What did you say? Emperor Jingtai's eyes widened in an instant, as if his eyeballs were about to squeeze out of his sockets. Yuan Xiong said respectfully, Li Shaofu has been killed. Emperor Jingtai only felt a ball of blood rushing into his brain, giving him a splitting headache, dizziness, and uncontrollable shaking from side to side. His Majesty. Your Majesty, are you okay? Send the imperial doctor quickly. When Xia Yongxuan saw Emperor Jingtai like this, he quickly went up to help him and at the same time injected a pure energy into his body. No, there is no need to call the imperial doctor. Emperor Jingtai covered his head and gasped, I'm fine, I'm just, alas, that's all. Emperor Jingtai sighed, looking extremely tired. He would never have thought that Li Wenbo was also killed, and he was killed in the palace. Li Wenbo was the most convenient tool used by Emperor Jingtai, to amass wealth and collect heaven and earth. He needs Li Wenbo to do all these things for him, such as building treasures, checking and balancing the court, and shouldering infamy. In addition, Li Wenbo's ability to handle government affairs is also good, and he can share a lot of government pressure. It is precisely because of Li Wenbo that he is the emperor. There is so much time to refine elixirs and pursue immortality. Now that Li Wenbo is dead, there is no one to share the government affairs for him, and no one to bear the infamy for him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 253. Now that Li Wenbo is dead, no one can share the government affairs for him, and no one can bear the infamy for him. In addition, Li Wenbo was killed in the palace, which means that the murderer walked around the palace unscrupulously last night. The Imperial Palace Forbidden Army did not notice it, nor did the many palace guards. Even Xia Yongxuan did not notice it. It was silent and without any movement. Does this mean that if the murderer wanted to kill him last night, he would be dead now? When he thought of this, Emperor Jingtai felt a chill on his back, and at the same time his heart was filled with anger. The raging anger is burning fiercely, and is about to explode my chest. The golden-faced Lion King. The golden-faced Lion King. Even if he tramples on the laws of the imperial court, he actually dares to break into the Forbidden Palace at night and kill people under my nose. He doesn't take me seriously at all. Who does he think he is? Who is he? Xia Yongxuan. Wei Chen is here. When the emperor called him, Xia Yongxuan immediately bowed his head and obeyed. Emperor Jingtai roared, "I want your Jinyi Wei to capture the golden-faced Lion King at all costs, no matter life or death. In short, I want to see the golden-faced Lion King's head on his neck. No matter what, this murderer must not be allowed to live in the world again." Emperor Jingtai stared at Xia Yongxuan, his ferocious face and cold eyes all telling the emperor's rage. And hidden under the rage was fear. The golden-faced Lion King's unscrupulous killings had threatened to his emperor's life was safe. There was one thing that Emperor Jingtai did not say. Unless he killed the golden-faced Lion King, he would not be able to sleep or eat well. Such a big devil who trampled on the laws of the court and acted unscrupulously was more than a devil in the eyes of Emperor Jingtai. The threat from the remnants of the cult is even greater. Emperor Jingtai was terrified when he thought that he might die at the hands of the golden-faced Lion King last night. As an emperor, he can be afraid. But fear is human nature, an instinct engraved in the bones. Emperor Jingtai obviously did not cultivate to the level where he could suppress fear. At this moment, his voice was trembling and his body was shivering. Although it was not obvious, Xia Xian and Yuan Xiong noticed it. Xia Yongxuan and Yuan Xiong lowered their heads at the same time and said respectfully, "I obey the order." "Go ahead." Emperor Jingtai waved his hand to let the two of them leave, and the eunuch was also driven out of the Deluo hall. The door of the palace was closed again, and Emperor Jingtai sat alone next to the alchemy furnace, unable to calm down for a long time. Death was what Emperor Jingtai was most afraid of. He didn't want to die. He wanted to live forever, fly with the gods and immortals, and live as long as heaven and earth. That's why he was obsessed with alchemy. But after Li Wenbo's incident, Emperor Jingtai understood that death was so close to him. Emperor Jingtai experienced the chaos of seizing the throne, he was assassinated more than a dozen times, and also encountered rebellions against the king. Every time there was a danger of death, but Emperor Jingtai passed through it safely. At those times, Emperor Jingtai believed that he was the final winner and that he would not die. Only last night, Emperor Jingtai didn't have the slightest confidence, just thinking about it made his hair stand on end, and he was panicking. Through the bronze mirror in the hall, Emperor Jingtai saw what he looked like at the moment. His hair was a little scattered, with a little gray hair in it, and his face was full of all wrinkled and depressed. It turns out that I am already so old. The news of Li Wenbo's death and the massacre of the entire Li family spread quickly. Jinling was shocked, and countless people talked about it. "Did you hear that?" Thief Li is dead. Really or not, that is Thief Li when he is the chief minister of the dynasty, one person is inferior to 10,000 people. Who dares to kill him? Who can kill him? It's true, the news has spread. Last night, someone broke into the Li mansion and killed everyone in the Li mansion, leaving no one alive. Not only were there no survivors, there were no chickens, ducks, or dogs to guard the home. The corpses were piled up in the Li mansion. It was a miserable place. Huh, what's so bad about it? They deserve it. Thief Li did many evil things and killed many honest officials. He deserves to die. The entire Li clan should also die. How many things have they done to bully men, dominate women, and harm the people by relying on the power of the Thief Li? If you ask me, these beasts should have died long ago. Now that they are dead, I can only say that retribution has arrived and they deserve it. Who is the hero who killed Thief Li? It's so satisfying. I heard he was a martial artist named the Golden-Faced Lion King. The Golden-Faced Lion King? Isn't he the one who assassinated Thief Li last time? Yes, it's him. What a good man, he acts chivalrously and does justice for the people. If all warriors in the world are like the Golden-Faced Lion King, then our good days are coming. That's right, with the Golden-Faced Lion King here, let's see which corrupt officials still bully us common people. Thief Li is dead, we should be happy and celebrate. That's right, you should be happy. Everyone, Mr. Zhao, will pay for all the expenses when rejuvenating the building. Usually, people don't dare to speak loudly when talking about the Li family, for fear that people from the Li family will hear it and harm their lives. But this time, their voices were extremely loud, and everyone was talking unscrupulously. The Li family, all the people in Jinling are dead, are we still afraid of you? If you can, crawl back from hell and kill me. The people of Jinling were laughing and beaming with joy. When they heard the news of the death of Li Wenbo and the Li family, they all felt the pain in their hearts. A breath of resentment dissipated. In addition to the people in the court were also very busy. Jinyue, Liamen, the Ministry of Punishment, Dali Temple, Jingzhou Mansion, all agencies were conducting overt inspections and secret inspections. The emperor explicitly ordered the Jinyue to capture the Golden-Faced Lion King, but it is impossible for other agencies to stay out of the matter. Teams of Jinyue and Liamen detectives searched for traces of the Golden-Faced Lion King everywhere in Jinling City. Unfortunately, the Golden-Faced Lion King was not found, which made the ruffians in Jinling City suffer. Jinyue and whenever the six-door police officers encounter a suspicious person, they will arrest and interrogate them. In light cases, they will be beaten severely. And in serious cases, they will be arrested and imprisoned directly. On this day, the local ruffians and gang members in Jinling City were wiped out. The various major agencies of the imperial court were checked over and over again, which made them feel very sad. And Xiao Wuji, the instigator of all this, was still lying in bed and crying. Go to sleep. It was already noon when Xiao Wuji woke up. The sun was shining brightly, and there was no trace of his beloved wife around him. Creaking, the door was pushed open, and Su Weiner slowly walked in carrying a tray. Xiao Lang, you're awake. Get up and wash up and have lunch. Su Weiner smiled happily. Xiao Wuji pulled Su Weiner to the bed, hugged him, and said in a low voice, I don't want to eat lunch, I just want to eat you. 100,000 words are omitted here. By the time Xiao Wuji got up and washed up, it was already noon. Xiao Wuji walked out of the room, stretched out, and felt extremely comfortable. The maid Xiaolan saw Xiao Wuji got up and ran into the house with a blushing face. Xiao Wuji smiled nonchalantly and walked to the lotus pond with his hands behind his back. In the middle of winter, all the lotus flowers had withered, but it was nice to see the snow scene. At this moment, a martial artist from the Xiao mansion, the guard, hurried over, walked behind Xiao Wuji and said respectfully, Master, Shuehua from the Jinyi Guard's 100 household is here to visit. He has something urgent to see you. Okay, I get it. Xiao Wuji nodded slightly. Of course he knew what Shuehua's purpose was. It was nothing more than the discovery of the murder case in the Li mansion and the death of Li Wenbo in the palace. The Dog Emperor must be furious at this moment, and the Jin Yiwei is naturally worried. The Jin Yiwei suffered heavy casualties some time ago. Bijin Fuzi is short of manpower, so it is natural to ask Xiao Wuji to come back and take charge. Now in Bijin Fuzi, Yuan Xiong is the number 1 person, and Xiao Wuji is already the number 2 person. Xiao Wuji came to the lobby of Xiao Mansion, and Shuehua immediately he came up and saluted respectfully, "I see you, your lord. Get up." Xiao Wuji waved his hand, walked to the main seat and sat down. Shuehua said respectfully, "Sir, something big happened. The chief assistant Li Wenbo was killed last night, and the entire Li mansion was massacred. His Majesty the Emperor has a decree to order the Jinyi guards to investigate the real murderer, the golden-faced Lion King. The Fuzi in Bijin is short of manpower, so Yuan Qinhu ordered his subordinates to call the adults back to help. Li Wenbo is dead." Xiao Wuji showed an extremely shocked expression. "Yes." Shuehua shook his head helplessly. "Now Jinling City is in chaos. All the brothers have been released and are searching for the whereabouts of the golden-faced Lion King in every corner of Jinling City." Xiao Wuji nodded slightly. "This is really a big event, a rare occurrence in decades." "Who says it isn't?" Shuehua curled his lips and said, "Who would have thought that the Li family, which is so powerful in the world, would be wiped out overnight? The golden-faced Lion King is so brave. I heard that he was the one who broke into the palace and killed Li Xiaofu last night. He is really brave." Shuehua was frightened and chilled both physically and mentally when he talked about it. He really couldn't imagine that there were such audacious people in this world. Xiao Wuji said calmly, "Confucianism disrupts the law with literature. Chivalrous people use martial arts to break the law, and martial arts warriors rely on them. There are many people who are strong and bold." "That's what the adults said." Shuehua saluted respectfully. "I'll go change my clothes and go back to Bijin Fuzi immediately." After Xiao Wuji finished speaking, he turned around and strode away. In the room, Su Weiner helped Xiao Wuji dress and smoothed the wrinkles on his collar. With a worried look on her face, "Your injury is not healed yet. Why did you call me again?" "Bijin Fuzi. Apart from Xiao Lang, are there no other Jinyi guards in Bijin Fuzi?" Su Weiner was full of resentment. Xiao Wuji gently touched Su Weiner's cheek, kissed her forehead, and said with a smile, "This can only mean that your husband is very powerful, wise, and martial. Only your husband can take charge of the overall situation." Su Weiner hugged Xiao Wuji and said, "Weiner just wants Xiao Lang to be safe." Xiao Wuji stroked Su Weiner's hair and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'll be fine. It's broad daylight now, what danger could there be? And this mission is in Jinling, I will be back in the evening." "Well, don't worry." Xiao Wuji comforted Su Weiner, turned and left Xiao Mansion, heading to Bijin Fuzi. Soon, Xiao Wuji arrived at Bijin Fuzi. Along the way, many Jinyi guards were in a hurry, and teams of Jinyi Wei were in Beihu or Fuzi. Under the leadership of Qinhu, they walked out of Bijin Fuzi and went to various places in Jinling to search for clues about the golden-faced Lion King. Jinling City is very big, and trying to find a master like the golden-faced Lion King in broad daylight is like looking for a needle in a haystack. But Jin Yiwei has no other means now, and can only use this stupid method. When Xiao Wuji came to the middle hall of Qinhu Institute, he saw Yuan Xiong sitting in the main seat. Yuan Xiong was reading the file, and the file recorded the work of Wu, the autopsy results, as well as the Jin Yiwei's investigation results of various parts of the Li mansion. Yuan Xiong looked at it for a long time, shook his head, sighed, and put the files down. These files seemed to be numerous, but there were no useful clues. Yuan Xiong looked at after searching for a long time, I couldn't even find anything. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 254. Third brother, here I come. Xiao Wuji walked into the middle hall and shouted. Yuan Xiong looked up and saw Xiao Wuji, showing a smile, here we come, sit down quickly. When Xiao Wuji sat down, the maid next to him quickly brought tea. Yuan Xiong said originally, third brother didn't want to ask you to come. After all, your injury is not healed yet and you still need to cultivate. But you also know the current situation in Bijin Fuzi. There are really not enough manpower. Don't worry, when this case is over, third brother will definitely give you a long vacation. Xiao Wuji smiled and said, what is the third brother saying? As the 13th Taibao of Jinyue, I have the favor of the emperor, so I naturally have to fulfill my duty. All brothers are investigating the case, how can I be the only one left alone? Yuan Xiong nodded with satisfaction and said happily, I feel relieved if you think so. I guess you already know the facts of the case. Xiao Wuji nodded, Shuihua has already told me. I didn't expect that the entire Li family would be wiped out. Things are really unpredictable. After saying that, Xiao Wuji shook his head slightly and sighed. His emotions were well expressed, and his expression was also on point. Xiao Wuji, the best actor, did not have a wasted reputation. No one would find out that he single-handedly wiped out the entire Li family, Jin Yiwei, and the murderer that Liamen, Sixiang Army, Dali Temple, Ministry of Punishment and Jingzhou Mansion wanted to catch was sitting swaggeringly in the Qinhu office in Fuzi, Bijin. He was also discussing with Yuan Xiong how to catch the murderer. Xiao Wuji thought I am the one who kills, and I am the one who pursues the murderer. What should I do? Catching yourself? It's so difficult. Yuan Xiong said the golden-faced Lion King has great martial arts skills. The ordinary Master Qinhu is no match for him. Even I can't compete with him. So your mission this time is just to search for traces of the golden-faced Lion King. Once you find the golden-faced Lion King, report it immediately, and the commander will personally take action to capture this lion. The commander took action personally. Xiao Wuji showed a trace of surprise as he should have. That's right. Yuan Xiong nodded, if you want to capture the golden-faced Lion King, you can only have a chance if the commander personally takes action. Otherwise, with our strength, facing the golden-faced Lion King would be tantamount to death. These words are very familiar. After Xiao Wuji assassinated Li Wenbo, Yuan Xiong also said it. Last time, the Jin Yiwei also searched for traces of the golden-faced Lion King, but in the end there was no news, so they had to leave it alone. This time more troops were sent out than last time, and even tens of thousands of soldiers from the Four Elephants Army participated. Now Jinling City has been under martial law, with 9 gates sealed, and no one is allowed in or out. It is quite difficult to catch the golden-faced Lion King. The people in the court were determined not to give up. Xiao Wuji looked calm on the surface, but he was almost laughing in his heart. Looking for the golden-faced Lion King? How do you find it? Are you going to Juyuhuanquan to look for it? The real golden-faced Lion King has long been there. There are no bones left, leaving no trace in the world. And the murderous golden-faced Lion King is sitting in front of Yuan Xiong at this moment. Wuji, be careful in everything. Yuan Xiong instructed. Xiao Wuji said, third brother, don't worry, I will pay attention to it. In this Jinling city, I still have the strength to protect myself. Yuan Xiong knew Xiao Wuji's Qinggong and felt relieved. After leaving Bijin Fuzi, Xiao Wuji took Shuihua and Song Liman, as well as more than 20 Jinyi guardsmen, to patrol the streets. Of course, he had more than just these people. But it was too arrogant to bring hundreds of people through the market, so Xiao Wuji only brought more than 20 people. Anyway, it was just a formality. Xiao Wuji planned to find a place to drink and kill time. He found a random restaurant, a decent inn. The name of the inn is Sixi. The name of Sixi Inn is very auspicious. Xiao Wuji sat down by the window on the second floor, ordered a bottle of wine, a dozen side dishes, and ate and drank leisurely. "Sir, Yuanqin who asked us to search for traces of the golden-faced Lion King. Isn't it a little bad for us to be lazy here? Underscore. Underscore. Underscore, isn't this what we are looking for? Does this count?" Shuehua and Song Liman took a look at the good wine and food on the table, their faces twitched a few times, and they were impressed in their hearts. The only ones who can talk about laziness so confidently are their own adults. Xiao Wuji drank a glass of wine and said lightly, Shuehua came in a hurry at noon. I didn't even eat lunch. Isn't it okay to have a few bites when I'm hungry? Okay, okay, whatever the adults say is whatever it is. Shuehua and Song Liman laughed twice and agreed. Xiao Wuji looked at his more than 20 subordinates and said, you can order whatever you want to eat or drink. Anyway, Shuehua is treating us this time, and he has a lot of money. Why am I treating you? Shuehua was dumbfounded, and Song Liman snickered from the side. Xiao Wuji said, who made you rich? I heard that you have won a lot by playing with money these days. What's the matter with inviting everyone to a meal? Song Liman echoed from the side, that's right. After winning so much, why should we treat us to a nice meal? Don't be polite, brothers, this guy has a lot of money, don't feel sorry for him. With Xiao Wuji's support and Song Liman adding fuel to the fire, more than 20 Jinyue became more courageous and ordered a total of 5 tables of wine and food, all of which were the best in Sixi Inn. Everyone ate and drank, leisurely. I don't know how comfortable it is. Compared with the imperial guards and 6-door policemen in the city who are exhausted from running around, Xiao Wuji and the others are much more comfortable. Stop, stop. At this moment, a burst of shouting suddenly sounded in Xiao Wuji's ears. Xiao Wuji and others quickly looked around and saw on the street outside the window, there was a 6-door silver-clad policeman with more than a dozen detectives catching thieves. The silver-robed head catcher was a woman, dressed in smart clothes, with long hair flying, and full of heroic spirit. In front of her, a man in shabby linen clothes was running for his life, and looked back from time to time. He saw the female catcher being thrown away by him far away. The man grinned, stepped hard, stepped on his left foot and right foot, flew up into the air, and flew up to the roof. Seeing this, the female catcher also jumped into the air, flew up to the roof, and continued to chase. Sir, may we help? Shuehua and Song Liman are both interested in making a move. Although Jinyue and Lai Amenmen are not the same organization, when they encounter thieves, they still need to help if they can. Xiao Wuji swept. He glanced at the female catcher and said calmly, no, that thief can't escape. Xiao Wuji could see the innate true energy wrapped around the thief's body, but the true energy was very weak and seemed to dissipate at any time. This proves that the thief had just broken through the innate realm, and his state was unstable. His true energy was imaginary, the foundation is insufficient, and he is the weakest and weakest innate. He is only slightly better than a first-class warrior. On the other hand, the female catcher, although young, has already broken through innate. And she comes from 6 sects, and her martial arts skills must be better than those of Jianghu thieves. With the strength of the female head catcher, it is not difficult to capture the thief. As Xiao Wuji said, the female head catcher chased him faster and faster, and the distance between him and the thief kept getting closer. The thief felt the murderous intention behind him, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Risk. He glanced left and right, panicked, jumped directly across the street, and jumped from one end to the other. What a coincidence that the landing location happened to be on the platform outside the window of Sixi Inn. Xiao Wuji held a hand in his hand. Wine glass, looking at the thief outside the window, half smiling. Shuehua, Song Liman and more than 20 Jinyaiwei Li Shi also looked at the thief with joking eyes. What is this called? If you don't take the road to heaven, you will go to hell. There is no way for you to surrender. The street is so wide and there are so many roads. There is nothing difficult for you to run, so you chose here. In one jump, you jumped into the circle of Jinyaiwei. The thief looked at the many Jinyaiwei in the inn and was stunned. His body was stiff, and he stayed in place and did not dare to move. At this moment, Mao Thief was ready to die. Even if he was chased by the 6 gates of the police, he actually ran into the Jinyaiwei. How could he be so virtuous? Huh? Can you encounter so many evil stars at the same time? Hello, gentlemen. The thief grinned and said this, and the next moment he wanted to slap his mouth wildly. What the hell, what is he talking about? Xiao Wuji raised his glass and smiled, you are good too. Shuehua, Song Liman, and others had playful eyes and playful sneers on their lips. Just when they were about to arrest someone, they heard a cooing cry, where is the little thief running? The female catcher jumped up and kicked the thief in the air, hitting the thief in the back with her kick. The innate real energy burst out, and the kick made the thief's mouth and nose bleed, and he pounced forward. There was a loud bang, and the inn was blocked. The window was heavily smashed by the thief. Xiao Wuji only saw 2 black figures flashing past his eyes. The female catcher and the thief had already flown into the lobby on the 2nd floor of the inn. The thief smashed a wooden table into pieces. The female catcher's foot stepped on the thief's head, crushing him here and there, and yelling, I told you to run, I told you to run, I'm watching you, but you still want to run? What about dreaming? If I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know why the flowers are so red. The female catcher had a very bad temper. Even though she had subdued the thief and severely injured him, she still wouldn't let him go. She kicked the thief one after another, which made many Jinyaiwei's teeth sore. Hiss, this woman is a bit cruel. Shuehua took a breath of air. Well, it is indeed cruel and cannot be offended. Song Liman nodded repeatedly. At first, when they saw a female catcher, they wanted to help and win the favor of the beauty. But now they saw that the female catcher was so bad-tempered and so ruthless, they were no longer interested. Women, they still I like the kind that is as gentle as water. If such a bad-tempered tigress were to marry home, the family would definitely have no peace. Xiao Wuji could clearly see the face of the female head catcher. She had light makeup and was pretty and pleasant. Although some of her features were hidden because of the men's clothing. Gorgeous, but the appearance of this female catcher can definitely be regarded as beautiful. The female catcher kicked the thief more than 10 times in a row until the thief was knocked unconscious and only half of his life was left. Shuehua, Song Liman and more than 20 Jinyi guardsmen all sympathized with the little thief. He was beaten like this by a woman. I really don't know what kind of man can conquer such a woman. Shuehua murmured to himself. Song Liman smiled and said, how about you try, maybe you can win the beauty back. My dream is to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, and a group of children. I would never dare to have such a woman. You might as well try it. Song Liman also shook his head repeatedly, I can't do it either, I don't have that ability. Xiao Wuji drank a glass of wine and said calmly, this female head catcher is not an ordinary person. You two should talk less. If you offend her, I can't protect you. Shuehua and Song Liman were shocked. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 255. Sir, what does this mean? Isn't she just a silver-clad headhunter? Is it possible that he still has a background? The 6-door silver-clad head catcher has a status equal to that of 100 royal guards. In terms of status, Shuehua and Song Liman are no worse than the female head catcher. but what Xiao Wuji said clearly proves that the origin of this woman is not simple. Xiao Wuji, pointing to the white jade around the female catcher's waist, he said, "You can see clearly, her piece of white jade is not simple." Shuehua and Song Liman looked at it at the same time. When they saw the patterns and carvings on the white jade clearly, their pupils suddenly shrank. "It's her." The two of them lowered their heads at the same time, not daring to look again. Obviously, after seeing the white jade clearly, both of them deduced the identity of the female head catcher. In addition to the dragon pattern engraved on the white jade, there were also the words Xin Ran word. The dragon pattern is a royal decoration. Except for the royal family, it is not allowed to be used by the people. Anyone who violates it will be guilty of conspiracy and will be punished by the 9 tribes. Therefore, those who dare to use the dragon pattern jade pendant must be a member of the royal family and have a distinguished status. Combined with the words Inran, the identity of the female head catcher was revealed. Xia Xinran, the daughter of Huainan King Xia Yuanxiang, was the current princess. Huainan King Xia Yuanxiang was one of the few princes in the Zhou dynasty who had military power. He was also one of the younger brothers of the current emperor. The reason why Emperor Jingtai ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor was thanks to Xia Yuanxiang's help. After that, the emperor and his ministers worked together, and the brothers 8 and 93 worked together to protect the country of the great Zhou dynasty, which can be regarded as a good story. Xia Yuanxiang had 2 sons and 1 daughter. 3 children. His 2 sons were taken by him and guarded the border with him all year round. His only daughter Xia Xinran was left by him in Jinling to enjoy the glory and wealth. However, Xia Xinran has been wild-tempered since she was a child and does not like playing chess. She loves calligraphy, painting, and embroidery, but she likes to dance with swords and guns. She longs for the life of a knight-errant who does justice and eliminates harm for the people, so she has practiced martial arts since she was a child. Xia Xinran's martial arts qualifications are pretty good, and she has the vast resources of the royal family, broke through to the innate realm at a young age. Later, through connections, she entered 6 doors and became a silver-robed catcher. Although she was a silver-robed catcher, she was a princess, a member of the royal family, and a member of the emperor's family. With all kinds of favors, even the golden-robed catcher didn't dare to mess with her. The 6-door gods Xianyu and Qixia also had a good relationship with Xia Yuanxiang. He protected and loved Xia Xinran as his own daughter, so naturally no one dared to mess with her. 6 doors has become Xia Xinran's second home. No one dares to object to what she says. No one dares to stop what she wants to do. Xiao Wuji and others have long heard that there is a royal princess who is not good. She stays at home and enjoys the happiness, but she has to go to Liumen as a catcher. She is arrogant, domineering, and has a bad temper. She is a complete witch. I have only heard of her name before, but never seen her in person. Now that I have seen it with my own eyes, I don't know if she is arrogant or domineering. But his temper is indeed very bad. Who are you? At this time, Xia Xinran turned around and looked at Xiao Wuji and his party. She had already noticed this group of royal guards, but she was too busy teaching the thief a lesson just now and had no time to pay attention to it. Now that the thief was crippled by her, it's time to pay attention to this group of royal guards. They don't catch thieves in broad daylight and just drink and eat meat here. How can they be so lazy and worthy of the salary given to them by the court? What Xia Xinran hates most in her life is dog officials who only take money and do nothing. When she encounters such dog officials, she usually has to teach them a lesson. How can she live up to her reputation as a princess without beating them to pieces? As a royal guard, instead of patrolling the streets to catch thieves, you are here drinking and eating meat, living in debauchery. What crime should you do? Xia Xinran pointed at Xiao Wuji and his group and yelled angrily. Shuehua, Song Liman, and others smiled bitterly. What does this ant mean? She won't stop after catching the thieves, but also wants to cause trouble for them. The most important thing is yes, they can't afford to offend this aunt. Everyone's eyes are on Xiao Wuji. Now only Xiao Wuji can suppress this aunt's violent temper. Xiao Wuji looked at Xia Xinran and smiled. We are just patrolling the streets. I'm tired, take a rest here. Your Majesty, the princess, won't even take care of this, right? Xia Xinran's expression changed. Do you know me, Xiao? Wuji said. The princess's jade pendant hangs so conspicuously, it would be difficult for me not to recognize her. Xia Xinran quickly put away the jade pendant and said coldly, the eyes are quite sharp. Xiao Wuji said, we Jinyaiwei have different skills in eating. The same is the knife in our hands, and the same is the pair of eyes. If you don't have sharp eyes, how can you investigate crimes and catch thieves? Huh, investigating the case and catching the thief sounds nice. Xia Xinran snorted coldly and said, I saw many Jinyaiwei patrolling the streets, looking for the whereabouts of the golden-faced Lion King, but why are you the only ones here drinking and eating meat? You say you are tired from patrolling the streets, but I see that your clothes are clean and tidy, and there is no sweat stain on your forehead. How do you look like you have been patrolling the streets? In my opinion, you are just being lazy. Xiao Wuji was a little surprised and said, the princess's eyes are also very sharp. I admire her. Hum, there is no need to please this princess will not do this. Xia Xinran crossed her arms and asked, are you the subordinate of Ren who when you arrived, this princess must go to Xia Yongxuan to file a complaint against you? Xiao Wuji put down his wine glass, looked directly at Xia Xinran, and said calmly, I am Xiao Wuji, the 13th Taibao of Fuzikinhu in Bijan. If the princess wants to sue, go ahead and sue. Xiao Wuji. Are you Xiao Wuji? Xia Xinran heard that Xiao Wuji was protecting his family, and her pretty face changed slightly. Her big eyes glanced back and forth at Xiao Wuji, revealing a trace of doubt. I don't believe it, how could you be Xiao Wuji? Don't think that bringing out Xiao Wuji's name will scare me, I don't believe it. Xiao Wuji smiled and said, why does the princess think that I am not Xiao Wuji? Xia Xinran said. Xiao Wuji is the number one genius of the great Zhou dynasty who was personally conferred by His Majesty the Emperor. In just 1 year after joining the Jinyi Guards, he repeatedly solved major cases and made countless meritorious services. He is definitely a person who fulfills his duties. As for you, you cheat and cheat, you are lazy during duty hours, you spend a lot of time and alcohol, you don't look like Xiao Wuji in any way. When she said these words, Xia Xinran's eyes shone, and there was a hint of admiration deep in her eyes. What she said was reasonable and well-founded, and even Xiao Wuji himself almost believed it. Doing your duty? Xiao Wuji looked back on his career as a royal guard, and he did do his duty. After all, he completed all the tasks assigned to him by Yuan Xiong perfectly. Although he did a lot of illegal things secretly and even wiped out the entire Li family. But in general said that he is indeed a good Kinhu who fulfills his duties. This princess does have some discernment. Xiao Wuji secretly thought in his heart. Xuehua stood up and said, Princess, my lord is really Xiao Wuji. Song Liman said, the genuine ones will never dare to deceive the princess. While speaking, Xiao Wuji had already taken out the Jinyaiwei token and threw it on the table. Let's take a look. This should prove my identity, right? Xia Xinran picked up the token and looked at it again and again, then raised her eyes and said, are you really Xiao Wuji? Xiao Wuji said lightly, there is only one Xiao Wuji in Bijan Fuzi, and that is me. Come to think of it, no one dares to pretend to be an official and cheat outside. Is it really you? Xia Xinran shouted and immediately rushed forward. He grabbed Xiao Wuji's sleeve and shook it from side to side, looking at Xiao Wuji again and again with his eyes. That enthusiastic look was completely different from the previous look of asking questions in a cold voice and looking for trouble in an aggressive manner. Now Xia Xinran is just a fangirl who has seen her idol in her heart. Shuehua, Song Liman, and others all turned their heads and did not dare to look further. I secretly lamented the charm of my master, and even the princess took the initiative to embrace him. Xiao Wuji was confused by this sudden enthusiasm. Isn't this princess seriously ill? Change of face so quickly. Women are women after all, and their faces change at the same speed. Xiao Wuji pushed Xia Xinran's hand away and said with a smile, Princess, if men and women are not intimate, it's better not to fight in public. If word spread, it will damage the reputation of the princess. Xia Xinran waved her hands and said indifferently, what are you afraid of? We, the children of the world, don't stick to trivial matters. So what if I see it? Anyone who dares to speak nonsense will have his tongue cut off. Sure enough, Xia Xinran's tiger is not just talk, she is a real tiger. Does the princess know me? Xiao Wuji withdrew his arm without leaving a trace and asked. Xia Xinran said, of course, who doesn't know you, Xiao Wuji? Now. I used to boast that I was a unique genius, with the highest martial arts qualifications in the world, but I didn't expect to be surpassed by you. When I first heard the news, I was still a little unconvinced and wanted to challenge you, but unfortunately Uncle Xianyuan wouldn't let you. As he said that, Xia Xinran showed a regretful expression. A unique genius? The best in martial arts? Looking at the self-proclaimed Xia Xinran, Xiao Wuji's mouth twitched, and he rolled his eyes wildly in his heart. This woman is indeed seriously ill. Her brain is not working very well. How did she, a mere innate warrior, get the confidence to say these words? How much misunderstanding does she have about her own understanding? She still wants to challenge him. Xiao Wuji sighed in his heart. Fortunately, Xia Xinran didn't come and was stopped by Xianyuan's 7 kills. Otherwise, Xiao Wuji slapped her and asked Xia Xinran not to die. I guess the silver-clad and gold-clad headsmen in the 6 gates didn't dare to offend Xia Xinran. On weekdays, Xia Xinran was allowed to let her go, making Xia 4.5 Xinran feel that she was very strong. Anyway, she was just making up for the job as the silver-clad head catcher, and no one had ever thought about letting Xia Xinran actually perform any dangerous tasks. Follow her and let her just make him happy. Xiao Wuji swept his eyes from the window without leaving a trace, stayed in a corner for a moment, and then took it back. From the moment Xia Xinran appeared, Xiao Wuji had already discovered that there was a strong person hiding in the dark. The man's breathing skills and hiding skills were not very good, and he couldn't hide it from Xiao Wuji's perception. Presumably, he was the guard arranged by Xia Yuanxiang, responsible for protecting Xia Xinran's safety. Xiao Wuji, are you really as powerful as the rumors say? How about we discuss it? Xia Xinran said eagerly. At the 6 gates, none of the silver-clad catchers was my opponent. Even the gold-clad catchers were beaten by me. You are the great master, I can't beat you. But if you suppress your realm to the same level as mine, you might not be my opponent. The corner of Xiao Wuji's mouth twitched, and he didn't know how to answer for a moment, so he could only say, Princess, as long as you are happy. Shuehua, Song Liman and more than 20 Jinyi guardsmen next to them all lowered their heads, covered their faces, and tried not to laugh. They were all professionally trained, and no matter how funny they were, they would not laugh unless you can't help it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 256. Puff. A warrior in imperial robes burst into laughter, then immediately restrained himself and suppressed it. Xia Xinran looked at him, a little confused. What are you laughing at? The strong man pretended to be serious and said sonorously back to the princess, I think of happy things. What happy thing? My wife gave birth to a baby today. Lux said. Xia. Xinran suddenly realized it, nodded and said, so that's the case, that's really worth being happy about. Congratulations Lux. S face twitched wildly and he said loudly, thank you, princess. It is a great blessing for the villain's child to receive congratulations from the princess. Two strong men around him finally couldn't help it and burst into laughter. Xia Xinran immediately looked at the two of them, what are you laughing at? The two of them calmed down and said in unison back to the princess, our wives also have children. Xia. Xinran was stunned for a moment, looked at the three of them blankly and said, do you three have the same wife? Yes, poof. Ah, no. Children born on the same day. Oh, what a fate, congratulations. Xia Xinran nodded and said congratulations to each of them. Thank you, princess. The three warriors stood up straight and shouted in unison, as if they had received a great gift. And Xiao Wuji finally understood that the princess Xia Xinran was not mentally ill, she was just a bit stubborn. In other words, she was too protected. Okay, I'm new to the world, so I don't know the dangers of the world. Apart from being unruly and willful and having a bad temper due to being pampered, this Xia Xinran is actually quite simple. Xiao Wuji glanced at his men and found that they all had distorted expressions and were killing with their hands. Death 15 covered his face and tried his best not to laugh. But they couldn't bear it much longer. If they stayed any longer, their secret would definitely be revealed. Xiao Wuji wanted to leave, but when he stood up and wanted to speak, he heard an explosion in the distance. Sound. I looked up and saw a firework exploding in the sky. The fireworks formed a special symbol of Jin Yiwei, which was a signal for Jin Yiwei to ask for help. When they saw the signal, all the Jin Yiwei looked serious and could no longer laugh. Grown-ups. Xuehua and Song Liman walked up quickly. Xiao Wuji solemnly said, go to support immediately. I will take one step first, and you will come later. After saying that, Xiao Wuji looked at Xia Xinran and said, Princess, I have important matters to deal with, so I will leave first. After saying that, Xiao Wuji turned into a bolt of lightning and shot out. The moment he disappeared, he had already appeared more than 10 feet away, and only a black shadow could be seen with the naked eye. Xuehua, Song Liman, and others also bowed and left, only Xia Xinran was left alone. Xia Xinran stared blankly at the disappearing electric light in the distance, her mind went blank, and the shock in her heart could not be described in words. This light skill, this speed, was simply unheard of and unseen. She had never known that human beings' Qinggong can actually be so fast. Compared with Xiao Wuji, her Qinggong is like a baby taking steps. Liars are all liars. Xia Xinran gritted her teeth. No matter how tough she was, she realized that everyone around her had been lying to her before. In fact, her strength was not as strong as she thought. The reason why she was able to win every battle was because others allowed her to do so. Dong 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 dong. At this time, rapid footsteps sounded, and a group of 6-door policemen rushed from below to the second floor. They were Xia Xinran's men. Mr. Xia, here we come. More than a dozen detectives clasped their fists and saluted. At the 6 gates, Xia Xinran didn't like others to call her princess. Instead, she preferred to be called Captain Xia. In Xia Xinran's view, princess was something she was born with. What? She earned the title of 6-door silver-clothed captor by relying on her own strength, which gave her a great sense of accomplishment. In the past, Xia Xinran would be very happy when people called her Xia captor. But at this moment, she was not happy at all. Get up. Because Xia Xinran knows that the so-called silver-robed head catcher position may have been obtained by her status. The 6-door silver-robed head catcher must be an innate master. But innate masters may not all become silver-robed masters. Head hunting. There is a difference between the two. Humph, they are all bad people. Xia. Xinran snorted coldly, kicked the thief on the ground, and said coldly, "Catch this thief back to me, torture him severely, and make him tell everything he has ever committed. Don't let it go even if it's something as small as stealing your neighbor's sweet potatoes when you were a kid." After saying that, Xia Xinran left angrily. The detectives under him looked at each other, wondering why their boss was so angry. Did they catch the thief? And they beat him so badly. They saw that the thief's head was broken and bleeding. Looking like he was dying, all the detectives felt sympathy. He just stole a money bag on the street, and was almost beaten to death by Xia Xinran. Meeting this evil star today is considered bad luck for the thief. Xia Xinran. The happy incident was just a small episode, and Xiao Wuji turned around and forgot about it. Now Xiao Wuji was rushing to Jinling Wan Shifang at the speed he should have. Wan Shifang is located in the Suanwu district of Jinling City and is the center of Jinling City, an area where business is concentrated. There are not only stores run by wealthy local merchants in Jinling, but also merchants from other places, as well as merchants and distant merchants from foreign countries. Not only that, Wan Shifang also has many businesses of various religions and professions. There are 7 illegal gangs in Jinling City. Chengdu and above are all entrenched in Wan Shifang. There is a mixture of fish and dragons here, and there are all kinds of people. It is simply another ghost market. But compared with the dark ghost market, Wan Shifang is a little cleaner. After all, Wan Shifang is still under the control of the imperial court, and not many people dare to blatantly kill people in broad daylight. However, Wan Shifang is indeed the most dangerous of many areas in Jinling City, there is no doubt about this. Let them find the golden-faced Lion King. Who did they find? Xiao Wuji was thinking in his mind as he hurried on. Being able to make the Jin Yiwei send a signal for help proves that the Jin Yiwei has encountered a strong enemy. But this is Jinling City. Even if the King of Heaven comes, the Jin Yiwei will dare to go up and show his teeth. Who dares to go against the Jin Yiwei? Huh? Hey, there was a flash of lightning, and Xiao Wuji quickly teleported towards Wan Shifang. Along the way, the people looked up at the roof, and all they saw was a flash of lightning passing away, and they all thought they were being deceived. Only the martial arts warriors knew the electric light was transformed by true energy. But such a fast speed made them feel wary, and they all sighed that Jinling City was worthy of being Jinling City, and it was indeed Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You can see such peerless masters walking on the street. In the east area of the market, a street has been cleared and all the people have been evacuated. A group of royal guards are fighting with a group of thugs wearing strange costumes. There are no less than 200 thugs in this group, all of them have ferocious faces and fierce looks. They are holding swords and fighting fiercely. Not afraid of death. There are many corpses lying on the ground, including the corpses of Jin Yiwei and thugs. Go quickly, retreat quickly. Just now, a Jin Yiwei sent out a signal for help, and more Jin Yiwei will arrive soon. A mob leader shouted loudly, and while roaring, he hacked to death the 2 armored warriors in front of him. Walk. You can't leave. A Xiantian Beihu flew forward and fought with the mob leader. This is Jinling, the base camp of Jin Yiwei, and reinforcements are on the way. With the right time, right location, and people, they are all in hand. Jin Yiwei has absolute confidence in winning. The more they fought, the braver they became. On the other hand, the thugs were retreating steadily. They were suppressed by the Jin Yiwei in a small courtyard, with no way to escape. On the roof of the small courtyard, there were 2 black figures intertwined and fighting each other. One of them was Jin Yiwei Qinhu Yang Zonping. He did not use a sword, his weapons were a pair of fist gloves. The inside of the gloves was intertwined with gold silk and snow silk, and the outside was covered with dark iron. The fingertips were sharp and covered with barbs. This a pair of gloves is invulnerable to weapons, water, and fire. When attacking an enemy, he will die if he touches it, or if he touches it, he will die. His opponent is also a grandmaster, a burly man with a beard, more than 8 feet tall, he was in shabby linen clothes, with a bamboo hat on his head, and scars at the corners of his eyes. Judging from his clothes and appearance, he did not look like a person from the Zhou dynasty, but more like a person from the Mobai Great Wall. Yang Zonping punched the big man's sword, and only hearing a loud clang, the big man was pushed back more than 10 feet by his punch. The big man fell from the roof, and after landing, he took more than 10 steps back before stopping. The right hand holding the knife trembled slightly, and the tiger's mouth was torn and fleshy, dripping with blood. Yang Zonping stood on the roof, looking down at the big man, and said in a cold voice, "Just let us go, you have no way to escape. If you continue to resist stubbornly, there will be only death." The big man smiled ferociously, with a ferocious look on his face, and said sternly, "If I were afraid of death, I would not come to Oris Hill." He lost a scar as big as a 067 bowl on his head, but 18 years later he was a good man again. Besides, it's not certain who will live and who will die today. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard the sound of a knife. The roof where Yang Zonping was standing was broken open, and a figure rose into the sky. Holding a knife in both hands, he slashed down angrily at Yang Zonping. The person who suddenly took action turned out to be a grandmaster. And his appearance is 70% similar to that of the first burly man. I think the two of them should be brothers. The only difference between the two brothers is that the second one does not wear a hat and has no scars at the corners of his eyes. There are not many masters, but there are some in this group of thugs. Two people, it can be seen that the origin of this group of thugs is not simple. Yang Zonping knew that he might have caught a big fish. He did not dare to be careless, and used his luck to punch out, and collided head-on with the oncoming sword. There was a clang. There was a loud noise and sparks flew everywhere. As the true essence exploded, Yang Zonping and the man both fell back. But before Yang Zonping landed, murderous intent came from behind. It turned out that it was the first big man who took action. The big man swung his sword across and took Yang Zonping directly. Zonping's head was on his neck. Yang Zonping stepped hard, used the force to rise up from the ground, flipped in the air, dodged the horizontal slash, and just passed by the big knife like a small fish. While retreating, Yang Zonping turned around and kicked towards the big man's face. The big man had no time to put away his sword to defend, so he had to raise his left arm to block the front door, blocking Yang Zonping's killing move with his body. With a bang, the big man was kicked away by Yang Zonping, and he retreated nearly 10 feet distance. At this time, the second big man came to fight again and fought with Yang Zonping. Then the first big man in a bamboo hat also came to kill again. The two brothers cooperated with each other tacitly, their killing moves were close, and their sword skills complemented each other, beating Yang Zonping to death. They were retreating steadily. It was difficult for two fists to defeat four hands. Although Yang Zonping was stronger than any of the two brothers, he was unable to cope with one against two. "GGG," I said, "it will be you who will die today, not me." The big man in the bamboo hat laughed strangely and waved his knife to force Yang Zonping back. The brother next to him snorted, "Stop talking nonsense and kill him quickly. If we delay any longer, we won't be able to leave until the Jinyue reinforcements arrive." Yang Zonping was about to speak when a cold voice suddenly sounded, "You can't leave now. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system." Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 257. You can't leave now. Before he finished speaking, there was a bolt of lightning coming from the sky. As soon as the lightning flashed, it came to the roof of the small courtyard. The lightning revealed his true body, and it was Xiao Wuji. Seeing Xiao Wuji appear, Yang Zonping showed a happy face, shouted excitedly, "Xiao Qinhu, it's you who came in person. Yang Zongping never expected that the first person to come after receiving his call for help would be Xiao Wuji. Seeing Xiao Wuji's arrival, Yang Zongping felt relieved, looking at the two brothers as if he were looking at two dead people. Xiao Wuji's strength made it easy to suppress these two people. The two brothers looked at Xiao Wuji on the roof, their eyes widened with fear. The hand holding the knife tightened, and they kept swallowing. If you look carefully, you can find that their bodies were trembling slightly, and their foreheads were already covered with cold sweat. Although it was the 12th lunar month of winter, the two of them were sweating profusely. A person's name, the shadow of a tree. Xiao Wuji's name is known to the world. The two of them are naturally no exception. Brother, Xiao Wuji is here, what should we do? The big man in the bamboo hat asked nervously. When asking, he stared at Xiao Wuji, not daring to look away for a moment. What to do? How do I know what to do? The other big man was in despair. How could he have known that the person coming to rescue would be Xiao Wuji, the evil star? I'll tell you what to do. Xiao Wuji looked at the two brothers and said expressionlessly, now put down the knife in your hand, kneel down and surrender, you can still save a small life. If I let this officer take action, your lives will not be saved. Whether you want to die or live, you choose. Surrender. Impossible. We will not surrender even if we die. The two brothers roared, flew up at the same time, and slashed at Xiao Wuji with their swords. The powerful true energy burst out, one black and one red. The sword energy was intertwined, and it actually had a bit of the power of the late master. It's a pity that this in Xiao Wuji's eyes, attacks are nothing more than children's playing house. If you are stubborn, you are seeking death. Xiao Wuji's eyes were cold, and his body was filled with murderous aura. In a flash, Xiao Wuji had disappeared. The next breath, Xiao Wuji appeared in front of the two brothers, and his two palms, one on the left and the other on the right, had slapped them hard on the lower abdomen. The powerful palm power penetrated the body, directly destroyed the internal organs, rushed into the 8 extraordinary meridians, and finally broke into the Danshan Qi. Xiao Wuji's palm power was overwhelming, instantly defeating the two brothers' Danshan, and crippled them poof. The two brothers' mouths and noses were bleeding, and they flew out. There was a crackling sound in the body, and an unknown number of bones were broken. Along with the shrill screams, the two brothers hit the ground hard. The two brothers fell to the ground. After the people landed, they kept sliding on the ground, and finally smashed a wall. Bricks and gravel fell, burying the two of them. Among the ruins, the two brothers were seen in a coma. They were covered in blood, and their bodies were twisted. Half of his life was left. If Xiao Wuji hadn't wanted to keep him alive for interrogation, these two people would have been dead. Two warriors in golden clothes quickly ran next to them and captured the two brothers. Xiaoqian, whose strength is indeed well deserved, I admire you. Yang Zongping stepped forward, clasped his fists at Xiao Wuji and said. Xiao Wuji smiled and said, the culprit has been captured, but none of these thugs can be let go. We'd better deal with them first and then discuss them later. Yang Zongping nodded and said, what Xiaoqian who said is true. After saying that, the two of them rushed into the crowd of thugs, one on the left and the other on the right. Xiao Wuji pushed out his palms flatly, and suddenly used the 18 dragon subduing palms to overturn a large number of thugs in front. A group of people screamed repeatedly. With broken tendons and fractures, wailing incessantly. Not to be outdone, Yang Zongping rushed into the crowd and eliminated the thugs one by one with a pair of iron fists. The two leading masters had been captured alive, and the remaining ones were just ordinary mobs. Not even half a stick of incense. By the time they arrived, the thugs had been suppressed. After the battle, Shuihua and Song Liman hurriedly arrived with their men. As usual, they arrived a step late. Sir, can't you go slower next time? You'll make us look useless. Shui. Hua said with a helpless look. Xiao Wuji said slow down and the thugs will run away. Do you bear the responsibility? Shui Hua sneered twice and shrank his neck, not daring to say any more nonsense. Well, I am already grateful that Xiao Qinhu, Shui Beihu and Song Beihu can come to support me. Yang Zonping said with a smile, let's go to the small courtyard to check and see what secrets are hidden inside. It makes these people so brave and fearless of death. Xiao Wuji asked doubtfully, don't Yang Qinhu know, then why did they fight? Yang Zonping shook his head and said, I led people to trace the whereabouts of the golden-faced Lion King. When I came to Wan Shifang, I accidentally encountered a few suspicious people, so I chased them to inquire. Unexpectedly, as soon as they got close and before they had time to ask, these people immediately jumped up and started to kill, and then they started fighting. The officer noticed that this group of thugs was led by a master, and felt that this matter was not trivial, so he sent a signal for help to ensure that everything was safe. Xiao Wuji nodded slightly. Yang Qinhu acted prudently and did not leak anything. I admire him, Yang. Zonping waved his hand and said with a smile, Xiao Qinhu deserves the reward. I am just a little more cautious. To be honest, cautious people live longer. Yang Zonping's strength can only be considered average among the thousands of Fuzi households in Beijing, similar to Hong Zhenyi's. But he is cautious, so he rarely capsizes in the gutter during the execution of his mission. While talking, the two came to the door of a warehouse in the small courtyard. Shui Hua stepped forward and pushed open the door of the warehouse. There was nothing inside, except for a few pillars and the dust on the ground. Xiao Wuji glanced at it and sneered disdainfully, pretending to be a ghost. Yang Zonping also smiled contemptuously. Such a cheap trick is really laughable. The two of them could tell at a glance that there was another mechanism in this empty warehouse. Just because the Jinyue killed these people by surprise, there are still many traces left in this warehouse. Not to mention the sophisticated ones like Xiao Wuji and Yang Zonping. People like Shui Hua and Song Liman also saw some clues. Shui Hua walked into the warehouse, searched inside, and finally found the mechanism on a pillar. After turning the oil lamp, a clicking sound suddenly sounded in the warehouse wall. Then the floor of the warehouse cracked, split into two halves and slowly retracted into the wall. And under the warehouse, another platform slowly rose up. In the blink of an eye, there were dozens of large boxes and some things covered with black cloth in the warehouse. I want to see what these people are hiding here. It's worth their efforts. Yang Zonping stepped forward and uncovered a piece of black cloth. When everyone saw what was hidden under the black cloth, their eyes suddenly widened. Because under the black cloth, they were clearly long spears. The long spears were the same length. The head is sharp and flashes with cold light. And on the barrel of the spear, there is a word Zhou with a sharp edge like a knife engraved on it. There are many signs that this is the military standard spear of the great Zhou dynasty. This is ordnance. Yang Zonping looked at the spears under the black cloth and was shocked and speechless. Xiao Wuji stepped forward and took off the other black cloths one by one. Sure enough, all the piles under the black cloth were spears. A pile. There are 50 poles. 20 piles are 1,000 poles. This can already equip a 1,000-man team. Yang Zonping looked at the thousands of military-made spears and his face turned pale. Could it be that the box contains? Yang Zonping quickly stepped forward and pried open a large wooden box, which was filled with densely packed feather arrows. The box is very big. A rough estimate is that a large wooden box can hold at least 500 feather arrows. Shui Hua, Song Liman and several Jinyi guardsmen came forward and pried open other large wooden boxes. In addition to feather arrows, they also found standard sabers, 2 or even 3 stone longbows, and armor. When they pried open the last 2 big boxes, the contents inside made Shui Hua and Song Liman take a breath of air. Sir, Come and see. Xiao Wuji and Yang Zonping heard the sound and hurried to the end of the warehouse. They saw the feather arrows in the boxes at a glance. However, unlike the ordinary feather arrows in other boxes, these two boxes contained chi-breaking light arrows. Feather arrows. 2 boxes of chi-breaking light feather arrows, with a quantity of at least 1,000. Don't think the quantity is small. The money to make one chi-breaking light feather arrow is enough to make 50 ordinary arrows. There are 1,000 chi-breaking arrows here. Light feather arrows are equivalent to 50,000 ordinary feather arrows. By this time, everyone present understood that this must be someone reselling ordnance. This, how dare they? Yang Zonping was so angry that he was trembling all over and his face was livid. The laws of the Zhou dynasty said that reselling arms is a serious crime of treason. No matter the principal or an accessory, he will be sentenced to death and all 9 tribes will be destroyed. The arms stored in this warehouse can equip a 1,000-man team. More than enough. This is what they accidentally discovered this time. How many times have they not discovered it? Looking at the methods and styles of those outside, you can tell that they resell ordnance not once or twice. There are so many in just one time, how much does it add up to? When did they start reselling ordnance? 1 year? 2 years? Or 3 years? Yang Zonping didn't dare to think deeply about it. Just thinking about it made him shudder. Dare to resell ordnance, the man behind the scenes must not be simple, and the number of court officials he must have colluded with must be many. First of all, if you want to successfully accomplish this, there must be someone within the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau. If there is no insider within the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau, there will be no the ordnance may be smuggled out. The ordnance is tightly guarded. People who are not core members cannot smuggle it out, let alone contact it. Especially the chi-breaking light feather arrows are a top priority. Only ordnance manufacturing, only the core executives of the Bureau can smuggle it out. Secondly, there must be people at the 9 entrances and exits of Jinling City. Only in this way can the weapons be transported out of the city. As for how many times it will change hands and how many people will be colluded in the middle process, Yang Zonping has already I dare not think about it. In short, there are too many officials involved in this case, and Yang Zonping is frightened just thinking about it. He knew that he would be able to catch a big fish this time, but he never expected that this big fish would be bigger than he imagined. The discussion must be bigger. This big fish is likely to tear his net apart. Once the arms reselling case is exposed, the mastermind behind the scenes will definitely find ways to eliminate the evidence and kill people to silence him. He, the Jinyai Weikin who exposed the case, he will definitely bear the brunt of the revenge from the mastermind behind the scenes. Not only himself, but also his family cannot stay out of the matter. Yang Zonping does not think that the status of Jinyai Weikin can protect him. The people behind the scenes dare to commit treason, let alone it is said that 1,000 households were killed. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 258. The only thing that can save me now is. Yang Zonping looked at Xiao Wuji beside him, finally feeling somewhat comforted. Fortunately, the person who came to support him this time was Xiao Wuji. He couldn't handle the arms reselling case, but Xiao Wuji could. The strength of the 13 Taibao and the Grand Master is where Xiao Wuji's confidence lies. With Xiao Wuji in front, his danger is undoubtedly much smaller. Compared with Yang Zonping, Xiao Wuji is much calmer. He had long been aware of the reselling of arms. While investigating the case in Jieyang Mansion, Xiao Wuji was attacked and killed by a demon sect killer using chi-breaking light feather arrows. From that time on, Xiao Wuji already knew that someone in the court was reselling ordnance. It's just that there is no evidence. Xiao Wuji never told Yuan Xiong. As for whether the mastermind behind the reselling of arms is in collusion with the demonic cult, this is yet to be determined. The arms circulated into the hands of the demon cult rebels. Perhaps someone had colluded with the demon cult rebels and handed them over directly. It may also have changed hands in many ways before it ended up in the hands of the demon sect. But no matter what the situation is, the crime of reselling arms is already a serious crime against the Nine Clan. It no longer matters whether you are colluding with the demonic cult or not. Xiao Qinhu, this case is not trivial. We must report it to Yuan Qinhu. Yang Zonping looked at Xiao Wuji and said urgently. Xiao Wuji nodded. Yang Qinhu is right, I have this intention. Come, seal this courtyard. No one is allowed to come near without my order. As for those thugs, they are all taken back to Bijinfuzi and interrogated strictly. The person behind the arms case must be found out. Yes. Underscore. Underscore. Underscore there should be no answer. 797 All this comes from Xiao Wuji's strength. His prestige is all achieved by killing with one knife. Yang Zonping personally suppressed the thugs and rushed back to Bijinfuzi and Yuan Xiong to report the news, and Xiao Wuji it was guarded in the courtyard. All the ordnance in the warehouse were physical evidence and could not be lost. Only Xiao Wuji personally guarded it to ensure that everything was safe. When Yuan Xiong received the report from Yang Zonping in Bijinfuzi, he was extremely shocked. Selling ordnance is a serious crime of treason and a matter that shakes the foundation of the country. Yuan Xiong was loyal to the Zhou dynasty and naturally would not tolerate such a thing. He did not dare to stay for a moment and rushed to Wan Shifang Xiao Wuji as quickly as possible in the courtyard where he was. Whoosh! A black shadow flashed, and Yuan Xiong fell from the sky and came to Xiao Wuji. Where is the thing? Yuan Xiong asked urgently. Xiao Wuji said they are all in the warehouse. Yuan Xiong hurriedly ran to the warehouse. When he saw the piles of standard spears, sabers, longbows and arrows in the warehouse, Yuan Xiong's face immediately darkened. A gloomy chill emanated from Yuan Xiong. The temperature of the surrounding air dropped sharply. Although the outside world was cold, Xiao Wuji knew that Yuan Xiong was filled with rage. That surging rage could burn a person to ashes. Traitor! Rebel! These scum in the court should all die. Yuan Xiong slapped a big wooden box with his palm, and his domineering palm power exploded, smashing the big wooden box and all the feather arrows in the box into powder. What Xiao Wuji and Yang Zonping could think of, Yuan Xiong could naturally think of it. Sell. Behind the ordnance case, there must be a certain big shot in the court who was behind the scenes. When Yuan Xiong raised his head again, his eyes had become extremely cold and gleaming. Wuji, you lead people to remove all the ordnance here transported back to Fuzi, Bijin, and sealed in my Qinhuizhou warehouse. No one is allowed to look without my warrant. I have blocked the news, but there is no airtight wall in the world. Things here will soon be known to the people behind the scenes. I want you to personally interrogate those who were captured alive, and be sure to ask them all the information they know. Xiao Wuji nodded. I understand, third brother, leave this matter to me. Okay, I'll rest assured if I leave it to you. Yuan Xiong patted Xiao Wuji's shoulder. After that, Xiao Wuji ordered people to transport all the weapons back to Bijinfuzi. Because there were too many weapons, Xiao Wuji summoned all his Qinhu squads to bring all the weapons. All the ordnance was transported back. As for Yuan Xiong, he went to the palace to find Xia Yongxuan. Selling ordnance is a matter that shakes the foundation of the country and must be reported to the emperor. Neither Xiao Wuji nor Yuan Xiong expected that they were obviously tracking down the golden-faced Lion King. The whereabouts of such a shocking case could be unintentionally revealed. One was the murder case of the chief minister of the current government, and the other was the arms reselling case. Both cases were major cases that could shock the government and the public. One occurrence is shocking enough, and two cases it happened at the same time, which was enough to turn Emperor Jingtai's brain into chaos. When he thought of the dog emperor being tortured by two cases at the same time, Xiao Wuji couldn't help but laugh secretly. Should I find an opportunity to reveal to the dog emperor that the prince cuckolded him? Xiao Wuji felt that things were not chaotic enough and wanted to add more fuel to the fire. The murder of the chief assistant and the arms reselling case, coupled with the cuckolding of the prince, will definitely make the dog emperor very anxious and extremely happy. Just thinking about it, Xiao Wuji felt comfortable all over. Forget it, the prince's black spot is a trump card, let's save it for future use. Alas, I am just too kind. Xiao Wuji thought for a while, and finally gave up the idea of adding fuel to the fire. Then, Xiao Wuji took Shuihua and Song Liman to the Jinyue prison. The prison has been the same for 10 years, and it is still so gloomy and terrifying. In addition, Xiao Wuji took Shuihua and Song Liman to the imperial prison. It is already the 12th lunar month of winter, and the temperature inside the prison is even colder. When you walk into the prison, you will feel a cold air rushing towards your face, going straight to your heart and lungs. Xiao Wuji has the 9 yang magic to protect his body, and the cold air dissipates instantly after entering the body. Intangible. But Shuihua and Song Liman involuntarily tightened their necks. The innate masters could only barely resist the yin qi inside the Jinyue prison. They stayed in the prison for a long time. It is difficult for innate masters to break through the martial arts realm, and may even regress. Of course, for warriors who practice yin han kung fu, Jinyue Zhao prison is a rare place for training. When they arrived at the 5th underground floor of Zhao prison, they were caught. Both masters are detained here. Qinhu Yang Zonping, Fef, personally guards outside the cell. Obviously, he also anticipated in advance that someone might come to silence the prisoners, so he personally guards the prisoners. There is a Qinhu who personally guards the cell, even if no matter how powerful the people behind the scenes are, they can't kill people and silence them. Xiao Qinhu, you are here. Yang Zonping cupped his hands slightly. Xiao Wuji returned the greeting with a smile, thank you for your hard work, Yang Qinhu. Yang Zonping smiled bitterly and said, I really don't know whether I should be happy or sad this time. Xiao Wuji said as long as this arms reselling case is solved, Yang Qinhu will be the first to do so, and he will definitely be rewarded heavily by the emperor. Of course he should be happy. Yang Zonping sighed and did not reply. He just thought to himself, I hope I can live to that day. Walking into the cell, the two brothers were tied to the cross, their hair disheveled and dripping with blood. They were seriously injured by Xiao Wuji, and their whole body martial arts was disabled. Their bodies were already very weak and it was impossible to wake up. It was a special prison sentence. The doctor treated the two of them, and then drank ginseng soup to kill them, which made them wake up temporarily. The ginseng soup used in the prison to hang their lives was made of ginseng, Ganoderma lucidum, deer antler, bloodtail flower and other precious medicinal materials. Made. Even a dying person can hang on for a moment or 3. It is impossible for ordinary people to drink a bowl of ginseng soup in their lifetime. These two brothers have committed serious crimes, and they can drink such a bowl of ginseng soup before they die. This life is not in vain. How about it? Still alive. Xiao Wuji sat on the armchair and glanced at the two brothers. The two brothers didn't speak. They lowered their heads and panted heavily. It's not clear whether it was hatred or despair. Xiao Wuji said indifferently, you must have heard about my methods. However, if you don't want to experience the painful torture of the life and death talisman, just honestly tell everything you know. Otherwise, once the life and death talisman is planted, you will not be able to live or die. By then it will be difficult for you to die. Hearing the words life and death talisman, both brothers shuddered and looked at Xiao Wuji with horror in their eyes. Everyone knows the power of the life and death talisman. No one wants to try that kind of torture. I say, we all say. I just ask Mr. Xiao to give us a happy life. The two brothers spoke inarticulately. Their teeth had been pulled out to prevent them from biting off their tongues. Although the words were blurred, they could still be heard clearly and did not hinder Xiao Wuji's interrogation. "First, tell me who you are." Xiao Wuji looked at the two brothers. The one on the left said, "We turned out to be horse bandits from Changjiao town outside the Mobei fortress. My name is Fanda, and he is my younger brother." Fan Er. Family. This name does have some meaning. Xiao Wuji smiled, thinking that their father might be called Feng Jian. Xiao Wuji has never heard of Fanda and Fan Er's name. After all, there are many masters in the world, and Xiao Wuji cannot possibly know them all. Moreover, these two brothers are from the land outside the Great Wall of Mobei. There is a mixture of fish and dragons, there are many horse bandits, it is extremely chaotic, and the name cannot be spread. After all, not everyone is qualified to be compared with the 7 Shahs of Mobei. Xiao Wuji asked again, "Who instructs you to resell arms, of? Where are you going to transport the weapons out of the city? Who is coming to meet you?" Fan De said in a low voice, "We don't know who asked us to transport ordnance. We just collect money to do things. Have no idea." Xiao Wuji's voice suddenly turned cold. "At this time, you still want to resist? You really want me to reward you with a life and death talisman for a taste, right?" Fan Dafen Er was trembling with fear, and said tremblingly, "We really don't know the people behind the scenes, we just collect money to do things." Seeing that the two of them didn't seem to be lying, Xiao Wuji said coldly, "Speak clearly." "Fan De Dao, before transporting the ordnance, we will receive a letter and a deposit. The letter records the storage location of the ordnance. We only need to arrive at the designated location and transport the ordnance away. How do you get out of town? The method of leaving the city is also written in the letter. He will tell us when to leave the city and which gate to leave the city through. We only need to follow the instructions in the letter and everything will be safe." Afraid that Xiao Wuji wouldn't believe it, Fan Er answered, "At first we were also worried that we would be discovered. After all, reselling arms is a serious crime, and we were also afraid of death. But after we followed the instructions, we discovered that no one really checked us along the way. The soldiers guarding the city just looked at us casually and let us out of the city without doing any more checks. After transporting the weapons outside the city, we followed the instructions in the letter and put the weapons in the designated place and hid them. After that, it had nothing to do with us. We will receive the final payment at the end." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 259. Xiao Wuji frowned slightly. In other words, during the entire process of reselling ordnance, you have not had any contact with the people behind the scenes. Yes, that's it. Fan Dafen Er nodded at the same time. Have you ever doubted the identity of the person behind the scenes? No one has been sent to investigate. Of course there is. Fanda said, "I once sent people to stay at the ordnance storage place to see who would come to transport the ordnance away, but found nothing. None of the people I sent came back and only received a few heads. I knew that was a warning to us, so I never dared to act rashly again." Xiao Wuji asked again, "When did you start reselling ordnance? How many times has it been transported in total? How many ordnances are there each time?" Fanda replied, 3 years ago, we started reselling ordnance. 3 years ago, a man suddenly came to Mobei and found us, saying that he had a big business to entrust us to do. We asked what the business was, but he didn't say. He only said that this business would make us rich and we would enjoy endless glory and wealth. We were a little wary at first and didn't want to agree, but that man's martial arts was so strong that he was far better than us. He was a genuine grand master. He said that if we didn't agree, he would take our lives, so we could only listen to him. After we came to Jinling City and saw the ordnance in the warehouse, we realized that what he asked us to do was to resell ordnance. But by then we had already boarded the pirate ship and had no time to escape. After a business transaction was completed, we saw that we had not been discovered and that we did receive a large sum of gold and silver afterwards, so we were willing to obey the order. In the past 3 years, we have transported ordnance a total of 5 times. Counting the time you captured us, the total is 6 times. In the past 5 times, the location where the ordnance was stored was different each time. But the number of ordnance is almost the same each time, and it can equip a 1,000-man team. Xiao Wuji frowned slightly. Who is the powerful Grand Master who threatens you? Do you know his identity? What are the martial arts methods? Fan Dafan shook his head repeatedly. I don't know. He only appeared once. He also wore a ghost mask and a black robe, and his voice was disguised. We don't even know whether he is a boy or girl, or how old he is. As for the number of martial arts methods, Fan Dafan had a wry smile on his face. The man just raised his hand slightly, and the two of us knelt down. We really don't know his martial arts skills. A powerful grandmaster, crushing 2 grandmasters is like crushing 2 ants. Even if Fan Er risked his life, it would be difficult for him to block that move. Xiao Wuji had already guessed that these 2 people might have nothing. I know, but this part of the interview still has to be carried out. What if that person exposes his martial arts skills? Xiao Wuji can also have a clue. Unfortunately, nothing was found. After that, Xiao Wuji interrogated again. The 2 of them talked about it. Apart from knowing that the city gate for transporting ordnance out of the city was the North Gate, they knew nothing else. The 2 brothers, Fanda and Fan Er, knew very little information. From this look, the mastermind behind the reselling of ordnance was indeed cautious. Be careful and make it watertight. Fan Dafan Er, who is responsible for transporting the ordnance, knows nothing about it except the storage location, delivery location, and the north gate of the ordnance. And the location is different every time. Obviously it was used once and then discarded. Xiao, even if Wuji leads people to find the location, he won't be able to get any useful clues. After all, the weapons are not available, and the location is just an empty shabby house without even a hair. Even if Fan Dafan Er is arrested, he can't be implicated. The person behind the scenes. The reason why the person behind the scenes chose Fan Dafan Er to transport ordnance has already been thought of today. And a desperado like Fan Dafan Er can have as much money as he wants in the world. So meticulous, so watertight, I really don't know who this person is. For a moment, Xiao Wuji had no one to suspect. Logically speaking, Li Wenbo was the biggest suspect. Because Li Wenbo covered the sky with one hand in the court, if he wanted to resell arms, he could definitely do it. And Li Lin had sent people to assassinate him before. Xiao Wuji also used chi-breaking light feather arrows. But Li Wenbo is dead, so even if he wants to check, he can't find it. And Xiao Wuji always feels that this arms reselling case is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Fan Dafan, the 2 brothers have transported ordnance 5 times in 3 years, enough to equip an army of 5,000 people. This quantity seems to be a lot, but it is actually very small. What can an army of 5,000 people do? It is not even enough for rebellion. Isn't the person behind the scenes just for rebellion? Just to make money? Or, in addition to Fan Dafan Er, the people behind the scenes have other channels for reselling ordnance. Are there many lackeys like Fan Dafan Er? Just when Xiao Wuji interrogated Fan Dafan Erlang when the 2 brothers arrived, Yuan Xiong had already entered the palace and reported the case of arms reselling to Xia Yongxuan. Xia Yongxuan did not dare to delay for a moment and took Yuan Xiong to find Emperor Jingtai. This was really a wave of ups and downs. The whole Li family was killed. The golden-faced Lion King of the clan was not found, but a case of reselling ordnance was uncovered, which really made Xia Yongxuan very worried. And Emperor Jingtai was furious again after knowing that someone in the court was reselling ordnance. Damn it! Damn it! These people are so greedy and greedy. Am I not good enough to them? Isn't the money given to them enough? He even dares to resell ordnance. This is to dig up the roots of my great Zhou dynasty. Damn it, these corrupt officials all deserve to die. Emperor Jingtai was furious and furious. The roaring Emperor Jingtai's long hair was flying and his face was ferocious, just like a crazed lion. Emperor Jingtai knew that there were corrupt officials in the court, and Li Wenbo was the biggest corrupt official. Usually they were more corrupt, as long as the Emperor Jingtai would turn a blind eye if he did not go too far and could do things. But there was only one thing that Emperor Jingtai could not tolerate. That was getting involved with the army. Emperor Jingtai was well versed in the ways of an emperor and knew the power of the military. It is the foundation of monarchy. Therefore, although he has been out of power for 12 years, the military power has always been firmly in his hands. Emperor Jingtai will deal with any corruption related to the army seriously and will never tolerate it. Ordnance and military pay are two of them. Red lines. Once these two red lines are touched, no matter who it is, no matter how talented that person is, they will die without a burial place. Even if that person is Li Wenbo, no matter how useful the chess piece is, once it wants to escape control, it will be destroyed. He will be mercilessly crushed to death by Emperor Jingtai. This arms reselling case has obviously touched Emperor Jingtai's reverse scales. Dragons have reverse scales, and they will die if they touch them. Check for me. The arms reselling case must be investigated to the bottom of the matter. No matter who is behind the scenes, as long as they are found out, I will never tolerate it. The furious Emperor Jingtai issued an edict. And this edict overrides the pursuit of the golden-faced Lion King. Compared with reselling ordnance, a mere golden-faced Lion King is naturally inferior. After all, ordnance is related to the country. It is possible to shake the entire Zhou dynasty. Although Emperor Jingtai was a little stupid, he also knew what was important and what was important. Also, until the case is investigated, the news must be blocked. I don't want to hear some rumors that will destabilize the court. I obey the order. Xia Yongxuan and Yuan Xiong clasped their fists and saluted at the same time, and then slowly exited the Deluo Hall. After walking out of the Deluo Hall, they both glanced behind them and sighed. It has been a bad year, and bad things have happened one after another. Jin Yiwei is almost here. I am too busy. According to legend, the precursors of the country's demise are continuous disasters and instability in the court. Now these signs have appeared one after another. First, the demon sect rebels caused trouble in Jinling, and then there was a drought in the northern Xinjiang, the victims rebelled, and the emperor lost public support. Now there are treacherous officials reselling arms, and the court is unstable. Everything seems to be controlled by fate. Jinling City, Langzhou Villa. Langzhou Villa is surrounded by mountains and rivers, with extremely beautiful scenery. Thick white snow covers the grass, forming a continuous patchwork. Looking at the vast white field, there is no trace of dirt, as if it is the purest and cleanest place in the world. Pavilions and pavilions have been built next to Langzhou Lake, and a long bridge is connected to the center of the lake. Along the way no less than 10 pavilions were built. In the Suiyu Pavilion at the end of the lake, there was a young man standing alone. He was holding a porcelain bowl with a lot of fish food in one hand. With the other hand, he picked up the fish food and threw it into the lake. This caused a large group of fish in the lake to scramble for food. Seeing this scene, the young man suddenly laughed, and then poured down all the fish food in the porcelain bowl. The fish became even crazier and would not hesitate to attack the same kind around them in order to grab food. The big fish succeeded grab the fish food and eat it full. Not only can the small fish not grab the fish food, but it is also injured by the big fish with its tail and runs away. The weak eats the strong, and the winner is king. Schools of fish fight for fish food, and humans fight for fish food. Interests kill each other. Whether it is a human or a fish, the laws of nature are the same. At this moment, a middle-aged man hurriedly came behind the young man, lowered his head and said respectfully, "Your Highness, the armory in Wan Shifang was discovered by Jin Yiwei." "Yes, Fan Dafan has been arrested." "Oh? Who has such great ability? Can we catch the two Fan Dafan brothers? There aren't many people like this in Jin Yiwei, right?" the young man said with some surprise. The middle-aged man said the person who discovered Fanda and Fan was Yang Zonping of the Kinhu of Jinyi Guards, but the person who captured them alive was Xiaowuji, the 13th Taibao. It turned out to be him, no wonder. The young man sneered, "Now that I have met Xiaowuji, it seems that I really can't blame the two of them for being incompetent." The middle-aged man said Xiaowuji has great martial arts skills. It's natural that Fanda and Fan will lose, but we can't remain indifferent. Please tell me, Your Highness, what should we do next? The young man smiled slightly and said calmly, "Shut up those who should shut up, and disappear those who should disappear. What about the two brothers Fan and Dafan? Just leave them alone. Xiaowuji couldn't get any useful clues from them anyway, so just let them fend for themselves. Last time, my sixth brother messed around in Jinyiwei prison. Today's prison is much stricter than before. If we rush forward to silence them, we will leave loopholes." The middle-aged man nodded respectfully. "Your Highness is wise, I understand. Well, go for it." The young man waved his hand. The subordinate resigned. The middle-aged man bowed respectfully, turned around and left slowly. His Highness the young man threw the porcelain bowl of fish food into the lake, stood with his hands behind his back, and looked into the distance with his eyes, as calm as water, without any ripples. Judging from the conversation between the two, it can be known that this young man is also one of the princes of Emperor Jingtai, and he is a certain prince who is superior to the sixth prince Xia Zhengting. Emperor Jingtai has blocked the news. Apart from the emperor and Jin Yiwei, only the real culprit behind the case of arms reselling is known. This prince is neither an emperor nor a royal guard, so his identity is naturally obvious. Yes, this prince is behind the scenes in the arms reselling case. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 260. However, after the incident, the prince was not anxious at all, as if the case had nothing to do with him. He is not afraid of being investigated. In other words, he is confident that no one can find out the truth. "Xiaowuji, I really didn't expect that I would confront you because of this matter. I hope you can be more knowledgeable, after all, only those who know others will live longer." The prince's face suddenly changed, and his eyes became extremely sharp. The palms behind his back were clenched suddenly, and a burst of cold air suddenly broke out, whizzing away in all directions. The frost began to spread from the prince's feet, instantly covering an area of more than 10 feet. All were frozen. The fish that were fighting for food were also frozen, and they even kept fighting for food. At night, in the palace, Shuixian Palace, concubine Yun was leaning on the prince's arms and crying so hard that the flowers were raining. She already knew the news of Li Wenbo's death and the annihilation of the entire Li family. All his relatives died tragically overnight, which made Li Binjiun heartbroken. Li Binjiun went to see Emperor Jingtai during the day and asked Emperor Jingtai to avenge him. But Jingtai at that time, the emperor was learning that someone was reselling ordnance. He was so angry that he had no time to comfort Li Binjiun. He just comforted him, rewarded him with a few pieces of jewelry, and sent Li Binjiun away. Li Binjiun saw that the emperor was unreliable, so he had no choice but to rely on the prince. The prince is the one who cares about the beauty and the jade. From the prince, Li Binjiun can get some comfort. 483 Your Highness, you must avenge my father and family. You are the only one I can rely on now. Li Binjiun said softly. The prince hugged Li Binjiun and comforted him. Don't worry Binjiun, I will definitely avenge you. That golden-faced Lion King, I will never let him go. But this matter cannot be rushed. The golden-masked Lion King is very powerful in martial arts. If you want to kill him, you must be fully prepared. I have sent people to track down the traces of the golden-faced Lion King. If any discovery is made, I will notify you as soon as possible. Well, when I kill him, I want to watch him die with my own eyes. Li Binjiun said with fierce eyes and gritted teeth. By the way, I heard that my father was furious today. Do you know what happened? Emperor Jingtai became angry twice today. The first time was because the whole family of the Li family was destroyed and Li Wenbo died tragically. The prince already knew this. But the reason for the second anger was unknown. The prince's personnel in the palace could not find out. After hearing the news, he came to Li Binjiun to inquire. In fact, entering the palace tonight to comfort Li Binjiun was not the real purpose of the prince, but to find out the reason why Emperor Jingtai was angry. As the prince, if he wants to ascend to power, he must know everything about Emperor Jingtai. Li Bingyun thought for a while and said it should be about reselling ordnance. It was a coincidence that Li Binjiun went there today, and Emperor Jingtai was perfunctory and used this excuse to send her away, so I found out. Someone is selling ordnance. The prince was shocked when he heard this and asked quickly, who is so bold? The prince obviously also knows the bottom line of Emperor Jingtai and knows that this matter is not trivial. Li Binjiun shook his head and said I don't know either. His Majesty sent people from the Jinyi guards to secretly investigate. Because of this, Jinyi Wei did not have enough manpower to trace the whereabouts of the golden-faced Lion King. Speaking of this, Li Binjiun felt indignant. In her opinion, the Li family was loyal to the emperor and made great contributions. Now that the entire Li family has been killed, the emperor should avenge them at all costs. Sell arms. What does it matter? After the golden-faced Lion King is killed, it will not be too late to investigate again. Emperor Jingtai himself ordered to block the news, but he did not expect that the person who leaked the news was himself. He also did not think of his beloved concubine. Hui had an affair with the prince, so that the news reached the prince's ears. The prince instinctively felt that this matter was not simple. There were not many people in the court who had the courage to resell arms and such strength. He naturally thought he killed his brothers. Perhaps, one of his brothers was behind the case of reselling arms. The prince felt that this was an opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Maybe he could use this opportunity to completely kill a certain brother. Crushed to death. Above the court, the prince, the second prince, and the third prince stand in a tripartite position, all wanting the supreme position. The prince is the eldest son and has a righteous name, so he has the most officials and the most power to support him. But the second prince, the power of the three princes should not be underestimated. Although the other princes did not show any intention of seizing the heir, the prince could not grasp the true thoughts in their hearts and had to be careful. In short, in the court, the prince had to face the enemies. There are too many. If he can take this opportunity to eradicate one or more, his position will be more stable. When he thought of this, the prince's eyes became extremely fierce, with a gloomy cold light. The royal family is ruthless. For in the fight for the supreme throne, father and son can kill each other, flesh and blood. Naturally, the prince has no brotherhood in his heart. In his eyes, there are only people who can be used, and enemies. Since they are enemies, they must be eradicated, even if they are brothers and sisters are no exception. There was nothing to say all night, and the next day came in a blink of an eye. Xiao Wuji came to Fuzi, Bijan, and bumped into Qinhu Yang Zonping. Judging from the way he yawned, it was obvious that he had not slept all night. Yang Qinhu, did you keep vigil at the imperial prison last night? Xiao Wuji thought about it for a moment. Yang Zonping must have been guarding the Jinyue prison all night last night to prevent Fan Dafan Er from being silenced. Yang Zonping nodded and said Fan Dafan Er is an important witness, but we can't let him. They are dead. Xiao Wuji said Fan Dafan Er knows very little information, and there is no value in silencing him. Yang Qinhu should rest assured and don't be so nervous. Yang Zonping smiled bitterly. He was not as calm as Xiao Wuji. Who knows which big tigers will be involved in this arms reselling case? The trapped beasts will still fight. Those big tigers will go crazy before they die, and it is not surprising to do anything. Okay, Yang Qinhu should go and take a rest, there is a lot to do today. After that, Xiao Wuji went to the Qinhu office where Yuan Xiong was. Walking into the middle hall, Xiao Wuji saw Yuan Xiong sitting in the main seat at a glance. He was reading the file, which was Xiao Wuji's interrogation of Fan Dafan Er's confession. Third brother. Xiao Wuji shouted. Come, take a seat. Yuan Xiong nodded, put down the file, looked at Xiao Wuji and said, I have reported the ordnance case to your majesty, and your majesty has ordered a strict investigation. I will personally lead a thorough investigation into this case. Wuji, you will be my deputy. I understand, what should we do next? Xiao Wuji asked. Yuan Xiong said I have read Fanda and Fan Er's confession. There are no useful clues, so we can only investigate it ourselves. I judged that there must be an internal conspiracy within the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau, so I started investigating from the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau. Wuji, why don't you take someone for a walk? Remember, the imperial power mandates, kill first and report later. Ordnance is related to the country. Anyone suspicious must be brought back for strict interrogation. Anyone who dares to block the investigation of the case will be killed without mercy. When he said the last sentence, Yuan Xiong's face was stern, his eyes were cold and murderous. Xiao Wuji nodded and said, I understand. Okay, go ahead. The younger brother resigned. Xiao Wuji stood up and strode away. At the same time, the electronic sound of the system also sounded for a long time. Ding, the host triggers the mission, earth-shattering shock. A case of the host receiving and reselling arms is detected. The host is asked to find out the real culprit behind the case and arrest the real culprit, regardless of life or death. Mission reward, full level, the world is eclipsed. Shocking. Interesting. When Xiao Wuji saw the name of the mission, he already had some vague guesses in his mind. It seems that the identity of the real murderer behind the scenes is very important. Once found out, it will definitely shock the court and the world. If Xiao Wuji kills that person, it will definitely be earth-shattering. There is a challenge, I like it. Xiao Wuji prides himself on not being afraid of powerful people. In order to complete the task, he dares to kill even the sons and grandsons of dragons. Then, Xiao Wuji took his men to the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau. This time, Xiao Wuji not only brought more than 20 men, but brought more than 200 of his men. More than 200 people marched to the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau, and people along the way gave way. Soon, Xiao Wuji arrived in front of the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau. The Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau is located in the south of Jinling City, occupying the ground is very large, and the perimeter is heavily guarded. Any ordnance transported from the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau must undergo strict approval. It is more difficult to transport ordnance secretly than to climb to the sky. Logically speaking, under such a tight blockade, it is difficult to transport ordnance secretly. It is impossible to smuggle arms. But the man behind the scenes did it, which shows his methods. It is difficult to guard against domestic thieves day and night. The words of our ancestors make sense after all. Go and report that Xiao Wuji, the 13th eunuch of Jin Yiwei, is here. Xiao Wuji ordered at the door of the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau. Obey. Underscore. 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 Xiaoqian, who is here? I am sorry to hear you come from afar, but I hope you will forgive me. The official's face was shiny, and his belly was as big as that of a pregnant woman who was more than 5 months pregnant. He was shaking up and down and jumping up and down as he ran. He ran up to Xiao Wuji, bent down and bowed in salute, with a look of awe on his face. The fat man's appearance reminded Xiao Wuji of his father-in-law. Su Yu was also a big fat man, and even worse than this officer. Xiao Wuji had already known the senior officials of the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau before he came, and knew that this was the ordnance man. Manufacturing Bureau Supervisor Zheng Tanhinian. Tanhinian is a third-rank official in the imperial court and can be regarded as an important minister of the court. However, he is respectful in front of Xiao Wuji and does not dare to be arrogant. Although Xiao Wuji, 1,000 households, is only from the 4th rank in name, but his power is greater than that of a third-rank court official. The imperial power charter, the privilege of killing first and reporting later, is enough to scare countless officials. Come on, Mr. Qin, no need to be polite. Xiao Wuji waved his hand and said. Thank you, sir. Tanhinian stood up with difficulty, looked at Xiao Wuji with a smile, and asked tentatively, I wonder what important matter Xiaoqian who came to the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau today? But someone in the Xiaoguan Bureau committed a crime. Please also ask Xiaoqian who to tell this person's name, and the official will immediately send someone to capture this animal. Qin Hinian's words were righteous and upright, showing the image of a good and upright official. Xiao Wuji smiled and said, today, I am indeed here to arrest people, but who and how many people are to be arrested are still unknown. I also ask Mr. Qin to lead the way for me. I want to go to the Ordnance Manufacturing Bureau for inspection. This. Qin Hinian was a little hesitant. How? Mr. Qin has a problem. Xiao Wuji narrowed his eyes, revealing a hint of coldness.